This episode of Yes But Why podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/yesbutwhy. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Download your free audiobook today at audibletrial.com/yesbutwhy. I'm Amy Jordan, and this is Yes But Why podcast. Yeah. Austin Film Festival was an amazing adventure for me. Yes But Why was invited to join the press corps, and I spent the better part of Friday the 25th and Saturday the 26th doing interviews in and around the Driskill Hotel in downtown Austin. I'm excited to share them with you now. My first interview is with Mark Wilson and Chris Retts, the director and writer, respectively, of the film Wade in the Water. They told me about how they have been working as a filmmaking team for 6 years and how they channel their creative flow to make movies together. Check out Wade in the Water tonight, Monday, October 28th at 6:15 p.m. at the Alamo Drafthouse Village. How did you guys meet?
Let's see. So, funny enough, we went to the same high school. Mm-hmm. He was a senior and I was a freshman.
Yep.
Knew of him, but didn't know him.
Same.
But through high school and after college, I always worked with his younger sister, Kaylee, who's a musician, and she would score my films with her violin, and she was just an amazing artist. And yeah, so I always just hung out with her and just had some random dinner gatherings, and Chris would be there.
Every once in a while we'd cross paths.
Yeah, he'd talk movies. I'm like, oh, cool, you like writing? Cool. Just casually, never put two and two together.
Yeah. I was writing and you were making movies.
Producing short films and stuff. And then finally, I think...
Sunburst.
I was working on a script, Sunburst, and showed it to Chris. I'm like, I'm sucking at this. Can you give it a whack at it?
So I'll take over here. So you weren't sucking at it is the thing. So as a writer, you're constantly getting friends' scripts and things, which is great because it helps you kind of develop your tastes and understanding of screenplays. And the vast majority of the time, when a friend gives me a script, I'm like, great. Here are my notes. Go with God. There's really nothing about it that kind of captures me in any way. With this great script that Mark wrote, it was a dying teen script, but the catch was that he has a congenital heart defect, so he's not dying till he's 30. So it's not like he's walking around with an oxygen tank. It's just that he knows in high school that he's halfway through his life.
Right.
And how do you go through high school with that knowledge? And I was like, oh, this is really fresh. This is a really interesting thing. And so in a normal situation, I would be like, great, go have fun with it. This time I was like, this is really cool. Would you mind if I did a pass on it? Mm-hmm. And I did, and we did, 3 or 4 drafts, and submitted it to Austin. Huh. And we were ended up being semifinalists?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, semifinalists.
For the screenplay competition in 2016.
Oh.
With that script.
Yeah.
That's great. So you guys, realized that working together was a good thing. Yeah, and you're like, hey, listen, your sister's great and all, but let's hang out forever.
Yeah, let's do it.
That's so funny. Well, that's cool. Yeah. Now, do you think, did you just enjoy working together empirically, or do you think the win was very helpful? Was it since you and I are gold together, let's keep going?
I felt it just naturally, we just gelled together, after he did a pass on it and everything, everything he brought to the table, I totally agreed with. We never had butted heads with him over the 6 years. I feel like we always just got along. The win helped us, but helped push our.
Totally agree. There's certain working relationships that no amount of success is worth. Putting up with someone who you can't stand, or who's making you feel terrible constantly. It's just not worth it. And Mark's definitely not that guy. he's amassed this great crew of people around him that love working with him because he's just such a great guy to work with. And then we complement each other really well. So I think he's an amazing director. I know I'm not an amazing director. That's just not my thing. And I think I complement him well in the writing end of things. And so that's kind of nice that we can kind of like fill in each other's gaps a little bit in terms of like our creative passions and abilities and stuff like that.
Yeah, and it's not like you're trying to do the same thing.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, so you're sort of butting heads. Like,
Right.
but if I were directing, I think...
I would be great. Yeah, I'm never like Mark. That decision. Yeah, no. Although as the director, like you do have story notes and things like that, and I do think that like
and I always reach out to you like about scenes and stuff. Like I always like to get everybody's input. Not obviously I'm directing it, but I was like, what'd you think? It's
super collaborative.
Yeah, I don't want to shield anyone out of the creative process.
It's funny though because now we think these kinds of things, whereas like think of the plays that are done every year by dead playwrights. Then nobody's asking them how they feel.
Yeah, exactly.
Listen, we're doing this one, but now it's all just set in Jamaica, and we're just going to dance around. And it's like, I feel like Last Menagerie is sadder than this. But, okay. So I mean, it's funny that in the creative world that we're in, there is sort of a respect for everybody's creative input, whereas I feel like even 10 years ago it wouldn't be like even now you think about your sister who's doing the music, like that's so amazing, what a great addition to something, or like, and we appreciate that, whereas I'm sure back in the day they'd be like, get the violinist to do it, like okay, whichever one works for the company. I don't know, I guess I don't know what independent film was like 100 years ago.
No, and I think there still are those people who are just like these auteur, like genius, kind of borderline insane people who have to have every little, creative control over every little thing, and sometimes you end up with a masterpiece that way. You know, which is great. But the way that Mark works that I really love is he really empowers, like he finds people that he respects and whose work he really loves, and people who are really good at what they do. And then because he knows they're really good at what they do, he's able to just be like, all right, go. Go do what you do really well in the service of this great thing that we're making. So he empowers people to kind of like try things and push themselves. And I think it's a really great way of filmmaking, because you end up with a team of people who have such ownership in the project, who are pushing themselves in their craft and are maybe trying things that they've never tried before, because they're given the freedom to do so.
Sounds like you're a great leader.
I don't think so, but thanks.
You absolutely are.
I mean, if you've got an eye for who works well with you, that's how you gotta put a group together. I mean, as long as you can take a look and know this person's going to do it without me asking them, or like this group of people is going to flow together in a nice way, like that's an excellent skill.
I would say I had like a moment definitely in college where I had a short film, and I tried to have control over everything, and it crashed and burned, and so many people hurt feelings, and I'm like, I never want this to happen again. And it was a big eye opener, and I'm like, you have to trust your team. And once you do that, you're so you relieve so much pressure on yourself. And you get to enjoy the process instead of stressing so much. You stress, but not as much.
But also a lot easier to do once you've amassed a team that's so freaking talented. Like Tommy Rose. So easy to trust that guy.
Thomas Rose, our DP's phenomenal. Gaffer, Matt Daniger, we all just have this language the last 10 years working together. We all know what we're all thinking, and we're all on the same page, and it's just been great.
So when you guys were making Wade in the Water, were there any unusual spots or things that happened unexpectedly? Any, like, wow, we wanted it to go this way, and it went the opposite way, but it turned out okay.
Oh, it turned out okay. Well, we had things that did not turn out okay.
It's okay if it didn't turn out okay. I mean, I guess it turned out okay because the movie's done, so there's
done.
that.
We're very proud of where it's at right now. It turned out okay.
It's okay. What's your wild adventure? You clearly had a story in mind.
Yeah, I mean, we were crazy enough. We did. We had one location, a burger shop, that just because it was free, we filmed there. But due to that, it was open to the public. / we also tried shooting 18 pages in one day, which is not recommended in any situation with filming.
And it's kind of, sorry to interject, but it's I don't know if it's the centerpiece of the film, but it's kind of a place where the two main characters return over and over and over again to kind of like debrief on what's happening, you know.
It's a character, for sure.
It's a pretty important part of the movie.
Yeah, and it just wasn't playing right. Even the location was wrong. Just because it was free, we did it. So that was our big lesson. Just because it's free doesn't mean it's going to work out.
And we were really dumb, right? Like going into it, we knew trying to shoot 18 pages in a day was a terrible idea. And we're like, we'll pull it off. We can do it. And
you know, initially we did pull it off, but then when we got to the edit, we're like, these scenes do not work at all. So we ended up reshooting all the burger stuff, different location, more days to shoot it, and so glad we did because it made.
Ended up paying to shut down
we paid to shut down
the place so we could have the run of the place.
Sure.
It totally makes the movie. It's completely different.
It's interesting how you can. I mean, I think that sounds like it worked out. I mean, you learned the lesson of like, well, we're past that now, and I feel like it's a great move, like in your life when you're moving forward in the career, to finally be like, I hate to say this, but we now have to pay for everything. We can no longer take the free stuff. We can't take volunteers. Everyone and everything has to be paid because we are worth it. And I mean, 10 years, you say you guys have been working together for 10 years. Guys, you're worth it. Like, you know, add a couple extra bucks to that Kickstarter if you have to, or, you know, smile real big at whomever's providing the funding. But, like,
absolutely.
I was like, either that or get a friend to buy a franchise of, like, a fast food place.
That's a great idea. We can start 2 businesses at once.
No, you don't have to run it. Some friend that needs a life, and you're like, okay, listen, you know what you're going to do? You're going to run a burger joint. You love burgers, right? You're like, I didn't know, but now it's my life. And then Bob's Burgers, you invented him.
Oh my God!
One of your best friends. He doesn't have a job now, but now in a few years, he's Bob's Burgers. You got 3 kids.
Oh, brilliant! I love it.
You'll get everywhere. You'll get everywhere mentioning Bob's Burgers with me.
That's so funny.
I love that show.
Oh man,
yeah, it's great.
So, when you guys are developing, you know, when you're writing, when you're working on stuff, you must have ups and downs. You've been doing this for a long time. I mean, 10 years just with that crew, but how many years you think you've been talking to people over the years? Like working, developing, doing, directing.
I've just always been making films since I was 12, but actually, like, making it a career, it's been, since out of college, 2007, so, like, 12-ish years. Just hustling and trying to make it happen, so.
Probably less for me. I went to film school as an undergrad, but I kind of enjoyed everything a little too much, like, in terms of, like, the various...
Yeah, I know.
I was like, I could direct. Oh, I could light. Oh, I could do sound. Oh, I could edit. And so, like, I kind of bummed around for the better part of a decade trying to figure out, like, where I was going to land. And it was really dumb because I've always been a writer. Like, I was writing novels when I was in the 4th grade. So it's really stupid that I was never like, oh, I should write. Like, that's... it just took me a while. And so, yeah, I really haven't been writing... seriously all that long. I would say since about 2014, something like that, 2013, seriously writing screenplays.
So my follow-up question, and I feel like it's interesting that you took all this time off. You were right in 4th grade, and then you didn't believe in yourself again until after film school?
That's correct.
P.S. You got into film school. That's like already...
Absolutely.
There's tons of us who did not get into film school.
No, I know.
You know what I mean? I was like, well, I guess I'll take my liberal arts theater degree. But when you guys hit a creative slump, when you don't feel like doing it, how do you move out of it? And since you were playing around and doing a bunch of jobs, and then like what got you to put pen to paper and really start doing it? And then for you, like what got you to really say like, okay, this isn't just a game anymore, I really want to make this my thing? And also if there's any ups and downs where you're like, when I hit a wall, I do, write 700 words on a wall and whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
I like those tips.
My biggest inspiration is, we have a day job that I guess
awesome.
I'll speak on my behalf. I'm not a big fan of.
I also have a day job.
Sure.
To pay the bills,
Yeah.
and every day it's good motivation to keep grinding away after clocking out. You can focus on our projects and just try to get them made to hopefully make that our full-time job.
Yeah, right.
So that's been the real motivation for me to keep the creative process going. And also when I get into Retts creatively, I kind of tend to go out, work on another little project on the side, and come back to it.
Yeah, that's great.
Just so when I come back to a little fresh eyes, it kind of helps me be in a different place in my mind.
Yeah.
So.
I think I'm able to look back on kind of my period of like indecision, like do I really want to write movies, as just a ton of resistance. It's just terrifying to do something artistic that you really care about, to like take yourself seriously as an artist. At least in my experience, is really scary. So scary, in fact, that it took me years to finally say, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to actually like sit down. And then, but the thing of it is, it doesn't stop. So like for me, even now, after having kind of finished a film and gotten into Austin and all this great stuff is happening, even now, every time I sit down, that fear is still there. It's less, but it's still there. And I think one of the big things I've learned is that fear is instructive.
Yeah.
So rather than that fear being a sign that you shouldn't be doing whatever that thing is that's scaring you, it's actually a sign that you should be doing it. And the more terrified you are, the more you should do it. This is an instructive kind of.
That's what made me want to do the script for Weight in the Water, is because it terrified me when Chris brought it to me.
I thought that was so interesting so when I first I didn't tell him anything about the script when I first sent it to him. He knew that I was trying to write something we could just kind of fall out of bed and shoot, quote unquote, something that would be super low budget and kind of attainable with our resources. But aside from that, he didn't know anything about it. And the very first thing he said after reading the script was, I want to do this because it scares me.
Yeah.
Which I thought was great. So.
Yeah, man. Awesome. Thank you guys both so much for taking time out of your day to chat with me and share some tips and some inspiration. I feel like it's really important. And I also, I interview people from all walks of creativity. If you're doing it, I want to talk about it. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of people who are working day jobs and a lot of people that are not. And it's every bit of it being put into the world is important. The work that you're doing both for yourself, like the fact that we are like, there's so many people in the world that like don't even allow themselves to be creative. And it's like, okay, good. And then those of us who like have to, it's good that we have friends who we can work with to do these kinds of things.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Awesome. Thank you so much.
So glad to do it. Thank you.
Next up, I spoke with French screenwriter Guillaume LEVIL. At the festival, Guillaume is presenting his uplifting short film, Running Naked in the Universe. In our chat, we talk about collaborative story development and the importance of making connections at festivals. I had the opportunity to moderate the Q&A for his premiere, and it went great. Check out the second screening of Running Naked in the Universe on Wednesday, October 30th at 7 p.m. at the Galaxy Highland Movie Theater. So for you, when you're developing your creative ideas, do you create the whole world and then characters, or do you start with the character and then build the world around them?
I'm a lover. I love things, I love people, I love objects, I love everything existing in this planet, even the bad guys that you said just before, because there is always something interesting in the bad guys, and sometimes there is something not interesting in the good guys. So I'm a lover, and I love at first a story. So I don't begin when I write something, because my job in life is to write stories for French director usually, or sometimes foreign, but it's less often. And so I'm a screenwriter, in fact. This film in the Austin Festival, I directed it because sometimes when the story is not very far from mine, I take it for me and I direct it, but usually I'm just the screenwriter. And when I write a story, I just love the story first. And after, when I have the story in my brain, after I take the tools, and the tools is the characters, and it's the emotion. And for me, there is no other thing in the film. It's the emotion. It depends on what you want people to have in their brain and in their heart, and that's all. Emotion, characters, and then you have the story that you thought at the beginning. And look at that. I wanted to show that. They gave me the paper to have the badge. This written.
You made our senior film program director cry with laughter. Congrats. Aww.
Oh, it's
sweet Rob. He's such a nice guy.
Yeah,
I'm so glad. That's the other part. You were talking about how people have been nice to you. I'm so glad. The other thing about this festival that's really nice is that everyone that works there is just super kind-hearted. Everyone that I've met, they're always trying to take care and make sure everyone's okay and doing their job so organized. Oh, I get the most beautiful emails. Like even that form you just showed me, gorgeous. Like, yay, someone who made that.
Yeah.
Oh man, I like that. The tools
nice.
are the characters and the emotions. That is smart.
Yeah.
I teach improv and sketch comedy. So in Europe a lot they call it impro. But so I do that, and so when I'm trying to get people in the mode of developing, they're creating stories off the top of their head immediately. And so characters and emotions are totally the tools that I'll talk to them about, where it's like, you don't have to worry about what you're doing, just pick an emotion and just be that right then. And then we'll adjust to that. You're angry, we'll figure out how to make that the funniest anger we've ever seen. Just make a decision, stick with it. And so it's fun that you're, when you're writing, you use those as well.
Yeah, and for improv, it's interesting because when you work, when you are a director and you work with the people, with the actors, sometimes you have to give advices to make their way of playing, of acting, more obvious for what you want to do, for emotional problems of your film.
Yeah.
And in fact, I noticed something. It's sometimes actors, they make a mistake. They want to think about the emotion which will be those of the audience. So they think about what the emotion will be in the audience brain and heart. And in my opinion, often, not all the time, but often, it's a mistake because in fact, the emotion has to be inside the actors, and if it's inside the actors when they act, it will be inside the audience.
Yeah.
As a mathematical thing. It's like that and that's all. So never think about the audience. Audience, it's a big boy. It's alone. He can do things by himself. You have to be confident with the public, with the audience, because what you are going to have as an emotion, this emotion will go in the audience.
Not to mention the fact that every piece of art is just like a glass mirror that people then put their own life into. So even if you, as the actor, are trying to make this person cry, the only way an audience member is going to cry is if they identify with the person that's having the emotion. So you're totally right. I think always, not sometimes, always.
Perhaps always, yeah.
Yeah,
but
actors.
The story of the mirror is interesting because, for example, for the film Running Naked in the Universe, my film was in Austin. In fact, it's a comedy. So usually people laugh. But one time, it's the first time the film is shown here in Austin. But one time I showed the film to my private, to my family.
Yeah.
I wanted to know what they think. My mother was laughing. My father a little less, but he was laughing, okay? And my cousin went to me with tears in her eyes. And I say, are you crying? This is tears? And I touched the cheek and I said, it is tears. I said, because you know, when you speak about liberty, women of liberty, I just cry. It's too sad, and you know. And I said, oh my God. So in the mirror, he saw it was a comedy for everyone, and everyone was laughing, but he was crying because he saw something sad in the mirror. And I said, it's good. It's good for the film. I don't mind because it's emotion. If you laugh or if you cry, the same for me. Don't worry.
Oh man, when we do the Q&A, we got to ask how many people laughed and how many people cried.
Oh yeah.
We get the audience to tell us.
Yeah.
We're like, really? Yeah.
Cried.
We won't ask you too many questions. We're just super interested in the emotional response. That's so interesting. Yeah. I also like that your family was your test audience. That was super sweet.
Yeah.
So nice of you. Look at this thing I made, and then you like make note of their reactions. You're so on point. You're taking care of it. I love it.
That after I made 2 test audience, one of my family and one with the friends, something.
Yeah.
And after all those 2 screening, I changed the film. I changed the film because I saw that little details were not so good. And so, for example, the end of the film, I cut something like 1 minute.
Oh wow!
With the editing, you know. I didn't shoot again some sequences or some scenes, no. But I cut the end and do because it was obvious for me and not for people. And sometimes you have to listen, you know.
Yeah. Interesting too, because we were talking about the idea of like let the audience be, but you created something, then you saw what the audience gave you. And you adjusted, which I think is very smart, even and
think
kind.
In America, you do it. You know, Steven Spielberg, for example, he always makes test screenings.
Oh yeah, they
and
do
then
that
after
everywhere.
He changes his film.
Oh yeah,
because he always said that he loves the audience and he wants to have his way of thinking before showing the film. So.
Yeah, I mean, also the audience is who brings you the cash. So let's go for that.
That's why.
That'd make them happy. Come on, man. We got to get you to be a millionaire. Let's get you your house on the hills in Los Angeles. It'll be great. I mean, you know, you can go back home and live in France, but when you come here, you'll be like, let me go to my mansion. It'll be great. Oh, that's so funny. So how you mentioned earlier that your job is to write stories for someone else. Are you employed as the writer of in a production company?
Yeah, employed by the production company, or quite often it's the director who employs me, and the director he employs me. But even when a production company employs me, really often, perhaps all the time, in fact, I think all the time, always, there is yet a director for the project. And so even if the production is employing me, I have to ask questions to the director, speaking with him during a long time, like a psychotherapy, saying what the guy wants to say. Even if the director is not writing one sentence in the script, even in that case, I think that his name has to go in the credits as a screenwriter with me, because in fact, I have to adapt my story to his way of seeing things and his way of, because you know when you do a film, it's 3 years job. It takes 3 years. So if you're not happy with the script, the film will never be done. So, but I'm not really an employee, in fact, because I listen to him, and it's very important for me because I noticed that more you give me details of your life, and more the script is good at the end, because it's another tool, and this tool is the soul of the director. And I take the soul of the director to make the screenwriting, you know. And it's easier for me to have this this difficulty. It could be a difficulty to put some soul and to put it in a script because you're not alone to write. But in fact, it's not a difficulty. At the contrary, I think it's easier to make a script when you have the difficulty of taking a soul and put in a script than if you are alone. Because when you are alone, you make mistakes because you are alone with the problem, and you make solutions that in only one way. But when you have the difficulty of the director, it's more interesting, and it's more obvious and it's simpler, I think.
That's awesome. Like the way you feel about this collaboration is so beautiful. Like this give and take between you and the director. It sounds so lovely.
And it's my favorite part of the job.
Yeah. So how did you get a job doing that? Like how did you start to get hired writing screenplays? And are you writing stuff and submitting them and then they use them? Or is it like they say, oh, you're hired now, here, write a story about 3 girls on a hill or whatever?
If I write a word script doing 90 pages and I say it's a feature film and someone is interested, perhaps is interested, is someone interested by that? 90 pages and all that. Even just to read the script, it's difficult to find someone because it takes a long time to read.
Yeah.
So there is a case on 1,000 that you find someone interested by your script. It happened for me 2 times, okay, but it can be possible to write a script alone, and that someone on the earth is interested but the same as you exactly. It never happens. So what happens is that I make film. I already wrote script, and someone saw one of the films and say, perhaps this man can help me about what I have in the brain, what I have in the heart. Sometimes a director comes with a whole story, and I take the whole story, I break it, and then when it's totally broken, we take the little pieces and we start at the beginning. Sometimes it's that, or sometimes it's just, hello, I'm a director, I want to speak about childhood, and that's all. And then we speak and we make the film. But always, I have to be sure that someone will make the film at the end. This is so long to write 80 pages. If I write alone and if I don't want to direct it, I write alone and then I just sell the script to someone. There are 2 problems. The first problem is that I don't find anyone, and the second problem is that if I find someone, he will break the script and do something else. So not very interesting. So we have to be in the discussion at the beginning, I think.
So then your first step into the door of being a writer was they saw you make a film and came to you, and then that's how you got in. Are you working for the same directors over and over, or is it like one director works with you and then suggests to his friend that you work with him, and then clearly I misunderstand sort of like the business aspect of it. Like, do you have an agent who gets you these jobs?
Oh yes,
or
there is an agent. There is an agent, but usually there are 3 heroes on Earth. You know that?
No, tell me.
The first heroes, it's the Avengers. You know? The second heroes, the filmmakers, because making a film, it's impossible. But they do it. So it's heroes. And the third heroes, he's hosting festival, for example. The festivals were making people meet.
Yeah. And
were showing the films. And that's why I can work today. It's because of it's thanks to the festivals in France and in stranger countries, foreign countries.
We accept stranger.
No, don't be so. It's all those festivals. You know, when I go to festivals, sometimes I meet a director, I meet a young boy here who is dreaming about films and all that, and perhaps 5 years after he will call me and then he says, you have to be my screenwriter. And I think I have 90% of my jobs. It's thanks to the festival and the meeting in the festivals. And to answer to your question, the first time for me was in a French festival. I directed a short film, and the director came to me and said, your film is wonderful, especially the script. Do you want to work with me?
Awesome.
And that's all. And after it's all, I don't know how to say in English, from the booth to the here, the expression to say that people speak about your work, and then other people hear about that.
Yeah.
And then after
word
they
of
want
mouth, perhaps?
What you say?
Word of mouth.
Word of mouth, yeah.
We have a lot of idioms, sorry.
And that's like that. Word of mouth. You heard about the guy, and perhaps you want to work with him. And
that's great hope for festival goers, for sure.
Yeah. Heroes.
The fact that you're, like you're telling me, go and talk to people, put your stuff out there. That's, I mean, I know that it sounds like something that other people have said, but somehow you're giving this hope to people where it's like, just put yourself out there, and the person who wants to work with you might just walk up to you and say, hello, you are good, let's work together. And you're like, ah.
And you don't have to be afraid. Sometimes it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Because sometimes there are bad people, or sometimes there are nice people, but you can't make a film with them because we are human beings, and human beings. Sometimes you can't understand each other. That is not a big deal because there are lots of people with wonderful souls, and you have to be confident because if you are confident in the fact that you will find a girl to make a family, you can be confident in the fact that you will find a director to make a film because it's almost the same thing. At the end, there is a baby. Named film.
I could find someone to love me. It's the same as finding a director to make it seem just as intense.
Yes, it's as intense.
It's like,
I think so.
Yeah.
At the end, there is a baby out of your belly.
Yeah. Amazing.
And then you talk to the baby. Hello, it's Austin Film Festival. Hello. and that's why I'm going. That's why I'm here. I'm here because I will do exactly the same thing with my film. He will be screened for the first time in Austin. I will say hello. I will talk to my film, I think.
Yeah.
I will talk to the screening room, and I will say hello. Here is Austin Film Festival. It's your first time. Hello.
Yeah.
The same. And I think it's as
crowd.
intense as a baby.
Yeah. Man, I hope that, people just walk right up to you after and people are handing you cards. Let's make stuff. Let's do it. That's so great. You're so confident and I love it.
Yeah, well, in fact, in life, I'm not so confident at all, but
there's confidence that comes off you even when I met you in the hallway. Like, you seem self-assured, so that's good. Go with that.
Okay. But when there is a girl in a room, I just run away. Okay.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, there's that. So that's a different kind of confidence.
No. And for your question just before, it was about. Yes. For example, I worked with a friend of mine who is a very fluent English speaker. Mm-hmm. So it's she okay. You understand my English a little bit, but it's a French English. You know that in France we don't like so much the foreign languages. Okay, but she's good in English.
In America, we don't speak anything but English, so I understand that.
But I'm
so sorry.
Yeah, but it's a good thing because on va parler français. No. But I work with her, and we made a series. Both in French and in English. And we try to find producers in both sides, in America and in France, because the story of the series is good for that.
Yeah.
And so I think I will speak about it during the festival here, because there are American producers, and this series could be good for an American producer.
Sure.
And if there is no Austin Festival, for example, on all those festivals in the world, I can't work, in fact. What do? I just send an email. An email is nothing. An email is just electrons. So, no, that's the big powers, the big power of the festivals,
Yeah, just the physical presence of us being able to meet is very powerful, for sure. I mean, I think of even how all the emails that I had with you and everybody else trying to arrange all of this, and now that we get to sit together, it's so much better.
Yeah, of course.
It's just like, hi, other human being, how are you?
Yeah, it's the same thing for Tinder.
Right.
you know.
Thankfully,
Because,
I got married before they invented Tinder, so thankfully.
Oh, thankfully. You know, Tinder is the Austin Film Festival. Tinder, you find a girl, and it's obvious when you see her. And Austin Film Festival, you find the next producer with whom we're going to work with. Okay.
I'm really glad that the festival doesn't work like Tinder, though, where you're like, what movies am I going to watch? No, yes, no. Like, there's your schedule. You're like, oh, okay.
But in fact, you're glad it's not like Tinder, but in fact, perhaps there is a little part working like that, but in the subconscious.
Yeah.
Because, you know, when producers come to see the short films, for example, they see 5 short films during the screening moment, and in fact, in their brain, they are saying yes, no.
Yeah.
It's quite the same.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
You know, Tinder is life.
Tinder is life.
I never went to Tinder, but...
Don't do it. Don't do it here. It'd be terrible. Tinder is life. This is what we've learned. Even though neither of us use it, it's a crazy, crazy thing. Oh, my goodness. So you're writing a lot. You're writing lots of different projects. Do you ever hit a creative wall, like you can't do it, you're blocked? And if you do, how do you get out of it?
I remember the question. And it's
the other
linked
thing
to
you
this
wanted
one.
to... Okay, good.
You asked me if I worked always with the same directors and the same production, or if it's changed all the time. Oh, it's often changes because of what we said before. We meet in a festival and then we are happy to work together, and it's the beginning of a new story. I have several directors, of course, with whom I wrote stories the first time, and the second time, the third time. Okay, and we always work together because it's obvious we know each other, and it would be a spare of time to change of team because it works, and it happens to me like that 3 times especially. For example, with a director named Cyrus Neshvat. He's from Luxembourg, and we met in a festival as usual. He went to see me. Your film I like. Do you want to? It's not the same story as just before, but it's the same style.
Yeah.
And he went to me, and we wrote his first short. The first short, the second one. We finished now the feature, and we're working with the second feature. So it works. But to answer to the second question, sometimes when you work with someone, okay, there is a financial problem, financial issues. So if we work during 6 months and that the guy paid you, usually we want to go until the end of the project. But we feel that it's not so obvious, and that the second time he has certainly to find another screenwriter or to write alone. Sometimes it's like that too. And it happens to me one time. At the end of the project, I say, okay, I think this project will be good for you, but it was really hard for me and for you. And the next time, perhaps you find someone else, or you write alone. And that's what he did. He writes alone now, and that's good because, okay, it's not we are not brains, we are hearts, and sometimes the hearts. It doesn't beat at the same rhythm, you know, and that's like that. It's quite magical when it's obvious with a person. It's magical. That's why I think it works like love.
Yeah. Though it's funny because you talked about it when you mentioned the love comparison. You talked about it like it was easy, and I was like, I think both of those things are very hard. What do you mean?
Both is quite hard.
I was like, that's not an easy task.
For example, when you
fall in love,
yeah. Yeah, but when you met your husband,
well,
perhaps now
I met my husband 10 years before we started dating.
Yeah. So it's quite. There is a moment when you feel that it's quite obvious, you know.
Totally. Yes.
Okay. So this moment, when you have it with the director, it's so wonderful.
Yeah.
And sometimes with Cyrus, for example, sometimes we have little clash.
Sure.
Like in a couple, like with your husband, perhaps sometimes. Oh, perhaps not you because you live in Austin, and in Austin everybody is cool, but...
Oh my God. Yes, I also fight with my husband. I understand.
And okay, sometimes you have clash, and it's good to have clash, because the script sometimes needs some clash.
Yeah.
It's like that.
Now, you were also answering the creative rut. What happens when you hit a wall and you can't come up with ideas? Or do you are you just flowing with ideas all the time?
I always have ideas.
I love it.
But sometimes it's bad ideas. And so, sometimes a little boy, I remember I was at school, I was speaking, in France we put some professional people at school to explain to young pupils what is life in the professional way of seeing things and all that. Okay. And I was speaking to a young boy, something like 11 years old, and his question was, but what exactly is the goal of making a film? Why? If there is no film on Earth, it's the same, he said. And I said, okay, guy, I can answer to this question. In fact, it's like if you say a word without love, it's possible. A word without trouser. That is to say that you are naked in the street. It's possible.
Yeah.
But I think it's better with a trouser. And I think it's better with love. And that's why I think it's better with films. But sometimes there are bad films. Because sometimes there are people with too much ego saying that I'm right. So the problem when you are sure of something, it's that it makes some conflict. If you are at the head of a country, for example, and you have a lot of ego, it makes a war. And if you are a filmmaker and you have a lot of ego, it makes a bad film. So I told to the little boy, sometimes there are bad films, but don't worry, there are good films. And it's good for Earth. Conflict is never good for nobody, and bad films neither. But I love bad films because when I see a bad film, I can appreciate something that help me to do good ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes I have bad ideas, and my ego say it's good.
Yeah.
And I have to fight in myself to say no, it's not good because you're a fool. It's not good. You're not good. You're not good. And sometimes I make a mistakes, and I want to believe in me too much, and after there is a bad film.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it happens. I'm lucky because it happened not too much time, but I made bad films. Yeah.
Sure.
It's like that.
Yeah. Well, it's good that you can admit that.
Too much ego. We have to fight.
Man, you seem very smart. You have a good feeling for how to do this. Like, you seem to just be very well adjusted when it comes to sort of the creative process. I mean, ego is what drives a lot of people, and the fact that you are aware that you should not listen to your ego is great.
It's good to be aware, but sometimes it's not enough.
Well, you're still a human. I always say, no matter what, we're still animals. Mm-hmm. Like, we can try to be as smart as we want, but at the end of the day, we're gonna screw it up because we're just, a dog who can talk.
Oh, yeah.
That's all we are.
Yeah.
It's like, it's lucky that we can, us two dogs can talk to each other, but, we're still wild and crazy. And, if there was brisket came by, we'd both be like, and be running away trying to get it, whatever that might be. So for you, what are you hoping to do here? Meet new people, interact, get involved with maybe more directors to work with? Are you going to spend a lot of time meeting people and chatting about creativity with lots of everyone around?
As I said before, the first thing here for me important is to be with the film when he's naked. Naked.
Sure, born.
Born. Because the film is naked.
Yeah.
Okay. So because if the film is alone for the first screening in the world is not good. As a father, sometimes I met fathers who were not happy because they were not at the hospital when and it's important to be here, even if a film doesn't have 2 legs and 2 arms, but it's important to be here the first time, perhaps the second, and sometimes like a child. Okay, that's my conviction. Secondly, there is no only English-speaking people in Austin Festival. And one time I met a director with whom I made a project after in Kentucky. So, okay. And once I met in America a director. What country? England, perhaps? Yes. Mm-hmm. Or English speaker, okay.
Sure.
And he was looking for a French guy because the story, even if it was in English, language was English in the story, it was in France. So I worked as a screenwriter, French screenwriter, with an English script, okay, but as the French brain in the project.
Yeah.
So everything is possible. Meeting people, so it can be with other language and all that. For example, the director I spoke about just before is from Luxembourg, met him in France, and he's speaking French because in Luxembourg we speak French, but it could not have been the case.
Sure.
Yeah, and the screenwriter I'm writing with now is Italian, but moved very quickly in England, so she's English. And she's working with me in France, and we met in a festival in Paris. So, that's
so awesome.
Yeah,
I love
the last thing
collaboration.
I wait for Austin is eating. I want to eat everything you eat. I want to eat a big cow, and then a big buffalo. And then I don't know what, because I just arrived here, but
sure.
I'm in love with food. So
yeah, we have a lot of it. Everything is in taco form here. You'll enjoy that.
Taco.
Breakfast, lunch, dinner, tacos.
Yeah,
you take anything and you wrap it in a tortilla. They call it a taco.
Oui, taco.
That'll be it.
Yeah,
everywhere you see taco. Yes, and anything it could be. And what's funny is so many different places have, it's like weird stuff. Like it'll be like, oh, this one's with kimchi, and you're like, Korean tacos. And then there's this one, and it's like brisket. And you're like, okay.
You will give me some advice, or where to eat.
Where to
good.
eat? Oh yeah, who knows around in town? Well, we'll talk about it. There's a couple of good spots.
Good. Because I will eat that first, your M&Ms, but after I will eat a buffalo.
Don't fill up on the sugar. Thank you, Guillaume, by the way, for talking to me. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to share your story.
It was very interesting because your questions made me, how would you say that in English? When your home is not clean, you take a Hoover, I think.
Yeah.
And you make how do you say that?
Vacuum,
yeah, but
clean.
You clean because there is some dust.
Yeah.
And so when we speak about all the work we do, and thanks to your questions, it is good because it puts the dust of your brain out.
Good.
Like
good. Now you're ready.
Hoover.
Now you can walk out and just meet that director. He'll be right there. He'll be ordering a taco, and you'll be like, which taco is good? And then there you are, your best friends.
I love
Our next interview is with Katie HYDE, the director, producer, DP of Indie City Films. Katie is a Jane of all trades, and in our conversation, we talked about giving opportunities to those who need it and building a great creative community. Katie is at the festival promoting and presenting her film, Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, Oh My God, I Think It's Over, a peek behind the scenes of the final rehearsals before the Crazy Ex-Girlfriend series finale. The documentary already played at the festival, but keep your eyes peeled for a hopeful future release from the CW.
But yeah, I started out just loving Christian Slater and Heathers and just being like, I need to be with Christian Slater in that universe of Heathers. And so I was like, that means I'm an actress. And so I just went to acting school and started out that way. And then by the time I was 25, I realized I just hated being a person who had to audition and take headshots is like hell on earth for me, like a headshot session. I can't even,
Oh, see, I'd imagine you'd be quite photogenic.
I just go, no. Like,
No,
I
you
just
don't like it.
I don't like it. So I just started being like, well, I have to make my own stuff then. I'm sick of trying to be invited to things, and so I've got to make my own stuff. So then I learned how to shoot and edit. Jack is really my husband, who's here, paparazzi guy. Ching. So he actually taught me how to, we bought our first camera. It was our first purchase as a couple, and
That's so fun.
Yeah, it's super cute. And so, I learned how to shoot, learned how to edit, and so now that's like kind of the bread and butter of my work is shooting and editing, and then always we're working on something larger, just as either a personal passion project of our own or just a larger feature with other people. But then my day-to-day work is shooting and editing.
Wow. So how did you even, the idea of shooting and editing seems like a lot of work and also like a lot of learning. It's just when you're an actor, I guess it's like I have to learn lines and feel feelings, and that seems like what you have to do.
Yeah.
That's what I feel like sometimes.
Yeah.
But putting in all that other work, what even motivated you to be the one? You're like, you know what? I'll do everything else.
I know, it's kind of funny.
What got you to even do that?
I'm here at Austin Film Festival, and I'm listening to other people talk about what they do, and they can do one piece of it. And for some reason, I convinced myself that the only way I would work was if I did all of it. I don't know where I came to that, so a lot of my work is I'm on a one-woman band. I show up like a mule with I love people like you loved me. I, record them with my FS5 camera, and I just show up like a pack mule, and I'm getting focused while I'm interviewing someone, or I don't know. It's just, I don't know, and I don't always do all the things all the time, but certainly, even if I'm just doing one thing, it always informs my ability to edit. Always informs my shooting, and my ability to act always informs my interviewing. And so whether or not I'm doing all the things all the time, to know how to do all those things, I think is just really powerful, and gives me the ability to feel confident in just doing one thing sometimes.
Yeah, it definitely. I could see that helping in a business way, where it's if somebody's not doing the right thing, you know exactly what is supposed to happen.
Right.
So it's not because there's a lot of scenarios where people get somebody to help them and they don't know how to do it, and they do it badly, and they're like, how do I fix this?
Yeah.
So being a jack of all trades, or a Jane of all trades, as it were,
Jane.
was
Jane.
that's a good thing. That's super great.
Yeah.
Have you always done projects like that? Not had, and I feel this way in that I personally just do projects, and then, like I was mentioning earlier, I had some co-hosts, they fell away, I keep doing it.
Yeah.
I do all the things, I do all the editing and the putting everything together, all the recording of everything.
But doesn't it make you feel like you can do anything?
It really,
because you don't have to rely on people like you're saying who might show up and not do a great job. It's
right.
If you do have to hire people, then you at least can be you know what to expect. You know what the thing that you're looking for. And then if you do have to do something yourself, you know it can be done. You know it can be done.
Now, the nice thing is that you have sort of a community built in with your husband, because you both have similar skills, so that, if you're ever I'm super exhausted, I can't edit this, he at least has the ability.
Oh, yeah.
Your film company must also have a nice community that you've built of people that have your back and take care of you. How did you build that community?
Certainly our first feature film is called Mount Joy, and it did the festival circuit in 2016? 14, yeah. And that really, making that feature, that had always been for us this thing where, we had, met and married, years before that, and it had always been something where we were we gotta make a movie, and somehow making your first film is the hardest thing to wrap your head around, to give yourself permission to do, to pull it together. But we just said, okay, now's the time, we're gonna do it. And I feel we summoned the people that showed up to make that movie to this day feel like family to us. We elevated people who had only been a subset of what they wanted to do with their lives, like assistant makeup, or a group who wanted to be a gaffer, or a second AD who wanted to be a first AD. My husband had not yet directed yet, so he directed. I hadn't produced and I hadn't starred in a film, and I wanted to do this thing, so I gave myself permission to do that. And because we chose well the people that we got together to make this, the crew and the actors too, my God, we let everyone be elevated to the thing they always wanted to be. And because of that, every day was a dream for everybody. It was like summer camp. We all descended upon Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and we took over the Travel Lodge, and we just stayed there all summer, and we made a movie. And it was I'm always trying to get back there. Still always trying to get back there. But it started this community building for us of I sometimes feel like producing a feature film is like being a really good hostess. You have to know everyone's name and what everybody wants and make sure you're giving it to them too. So it's a really good party for us to make a movie.
I'm so glad that you feel like that. The fact that you consider the work that you're doing a party, that's wonderful for you, because then you get to enjoy it. And you also, the best part about sort of being the center of it, you invite who comes to the party. You don't have to invite Larry, who's always mean. He does not invited.
Larry is not invited.
Get out of
mine.
here, man.
Heck no.
Right?
Yeah.
So you get to have all your cool friends. But you're not just making your own stuff. You're making other projects for other people as well.
Yeah.
So do you find the hostess metaphor is similar in that, you have to go in and meet people, sort of glean what they need from you in, I'm sure, the toughest possible way, pulling information, but what do you really want?
That's right.
And then trying to make it for them. How is that experience different for you, and how do you make it your own party?
I think that's a key. What you're saying is so key, making it feel like my own party, even though sometimes it's not my party.
Right.
And I think pairing up with someone who desires that out of me as their producing partner, and someone who's not trying to let me also feel like I own it as well. You know what I mean? There can be a conflict, and usually I wouldn't take a project even if I love it, if I felt like I couldn't also own it with them, even just emotionally.
Yeah.
And for a person, a director, or, who wants that of their producing partner, of me, then that's the beginning of something that can feel great, because I can't, if I've come this far to be able to sorry, I have a cold and my nose is
the first day of cold in Austin, we are all feeling the cold.
I was
I took twice as much allergy medicine this morning. I was you are recording your voice.
I took 2 Dayquil for you, just for you, so I wouldn't be
man,
here
later.
It is, it's coming. It's the green tea.
I was watch out. Just don't add vodka to Dayquil. It's a crazy town. I only know from college.
But I will later. I'll add champagne to Dayquil. It's a better combination.
Ooh, champagne.
Yeah,
celebrate.
When you get here as a filmmaker, they give you a bottle of champagne.
Oh, you deserve it. That's so sweet.
Nice.
I like this festival so much.
I know, they're really nice.
Everybody's so nice. Even when we were walking in and they were taking care and making sure it was okay.
They
I was
kicked someone out of these
I
couches
love
for
you.
us.
You're so sweet.
They're get out.
No.
Katie and Amy are ready. Get out.
What are you doing? What are you interviewing? No. So you're here. You're here for the documentary that you made about the last episode of Crazy Ex-Girlfriend.
Yes.
How did that opportunity happen for you? Are you friends with them?
Yeah, so I know the showrunner of Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, Aline Brush McKenna. I've worked for her before in several capacities. I've made personal video content for her. I've produced a play of hers. I long ago was an assistant of some sort for a year of her. I met her when I used to work for a producer in Hollywood, and she was that producer's favorite writer well before she became a household name of any sort. So we've known each other for all of my adult life, which is half my life, 20 years
That's
now.
great.
Yeah, so when she was wrapping up Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, she was, kind of coming into filming the 5th to last episode. It dawned on her that no one had captured their really unique process. It's a musical television show, really kind of quite feminist, really genre, bending, boundary pushing, comedy, on network television. It's kind of a really like lightning in a bottle kind of a show.
Yeah.
And she realized that it was going to end, and then it would be over, and no one had captured the crew and the writers and the songwriters and the choreography, that process that they go through. So she called me and said, could you come out here for the prep and shooting of the final episode and make a 42-minute doc. I think originally they had thought it might act as part of their season, but it ended up being something just that the CW wanted to push out separately.
Sure.
But so, she said, can you make this 42-minute, which is very specific, documentary just about our process? And so I was out there for 3 weeks with just me shooting my camera and a sound person, because I knew I needed a little bit of help. I couldn't be like with a monopod and dropping a camera trying to wow someone. So it was very on the move. So just a team of two on a couple of hours. I had a second camera when there was like a large group. But
what was the name of your sound guy and second camera?
Sound lady.
Sound lady, yeah.
Cindy Takahara.
All
She
right.
was awesome. Yeah.
That's so fun.
Yeah.
And you guys worked together a lot, so you could like move around together. It was an easy
we moved
flow.
Very fluidly, and she just had a boom and a big mixing pack on her hip, and I had my camera and my monopod. I had a couple of lights with me for some interviews, but it's very fly on the wall, just standing witness, because they are producing a television show, and even though it was, all of a sudden to the finale, it's like they're still really like crazy busy. And like they didn't even finish the lyrics of the song that was like the main song of the finale until like 2 days before, and I'm like recording them being like, how about this? And their process of just like, just saying, Rachel Bloom's genius is just quite, and you can even see, how everyone around her just really made room for her to have these kind of wild ideas, and then they would do them.
I love it.
Yeah.
A good leader and a good team can really propel a project for sure.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that you got to be there to capture that moment. If not only because for them, because yes, it's great. I could see how the CW could sell that, and the fans probably were like over the moon to see it.
Yeah.
But like, you're right that those human beings have been making that show for so long. They almost needed like an end of camp video to be all like, remember?
Yeah.
Remember us?
Yeah.
Like, and they can watch that for 20
years
in 20 years and be like, look at
Yeah,
this.
like a behind the scenes, because all you saw was what they made, not how they made it as a team. And that crew was there for 4 years. So very few people were turned over. From season to season, they all came back. I mean, not to the name, but 90% I'd say returned. All the writers for 4 years. You don't ever get that on TV.
No.
They stayed. Unless they went off and made their own shows because they like launched from Crazy Ex.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely been the kind of show where at the end everyone is like, none of us will be want for projects.
That's
like
right.
This,
it
because
really
they definitely
showcased.
broke. And I love, again, you're talking about that show, and it did break down barriers and was very different, but your addition to it, I think, is the icing on the cake. It's like the cherry on top, because it's like, not only did this happen, but then we captured how it happened, and it was such an important moment, and even the idea that it was you and another woman that did it on this like women-led thing. It's just like,
it was important to me. My editor, Erin Greenwell, is a woman as well, and that was important to me.
No offense,
not just woman, but just, first of all, people that I felt comfortable working with and I thought would do a great job, first and foremost. But that's important to me, to definitely work with diverse people who can bring more of themselves to the project that feels familiar to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let me just check on the time, make sure we're doing good. That's a photo of my child. Good. Okay. So the last question I want to ask you is about what your, a lot of times I teach improv and sketch. So and I teach the same thing all the time. So I have like a set syllabus and I teach different groups. Every time I teach, I kind of have a new idea floating in my head that then shapes everything I teach. So it's all the same lessons, but like one time I'm like, okay guys, let's really focus on deep dive emotions, or like, okay guys, you know what? Let's talk about this metaphor and it's going to help everything.
Okay.
I call that sort of like your jam. Like as creators, we have little ideas that kind of keep us going or that go or that even if we haven't developed them yet, it's like I keep thinking about this one story in my head.
Sure.
Is there anything maybe that you're open to share that is like your jam right now? Like the ideas that you're working on or like the directing techniques that you're like, I want to learn how to do this, so I'm going to do this project.
Sure.
What are you thinking about?
I mean, this isn't so much like something that that will like come next, but it's just something that's been in my mind for a
sure. It's
very
gonna be
long
like 10
time.
years.
It's almost like the undercurrent, like the theme of my psyche of the work.
Yeah.
I have been extremely into resistance and how it can like stop a person from doing the thing that they want to do most in this world, and which is your mind basically coming up with any which way to convince you that it's probably not a good idea to go do that thing you can't stop thinking about.
Yeah.
Because I deal with it in my own ways, and I think it's a very universal thing. I think it's like the thing that kills anything is the self-doubt or the criticism in your own mind. My favorite book, which is like a direct call out to the theory, is The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. So I think if anyone is struggling to start or continue to make the thing that they really want to make, you should read that book. It's become my Bible. I go to it all the time. I gift it to everybody that I think might need it. But basically, it really just like dives into like what resistance is, like internal resistance, and how it actually points the way to show you that it is the thing that you should do. If you have resistance to do it, then that it's literally a sign that you have to do it.
Yeah.
So
I actually kind of think that way, and I wonder. Like I was listening to you talk, and I was like, there's a voice in my head that's way more of a fighter, and is always like, screw that. You want me to do it? I'm doing it. Like,
see,
I am from Boston,
and
though,
that's
so
what,
that's...
it's the Boston.
Yeah, sorry.
God bless Boston.
It's special.
But you have to have a little bit of that, like, well, you know what? Like, fuck you, voice.
Yeah.
Like, that's literally, and, you know, I spent a lot of my life, you know, really, like, nurturing that voice of resistance and really letting it lead my life and letting me feel, like, you know, kind of shitty about the thing that I just made or kind of, oh, no, I shouldn't do it because, you know, your personal resistance will tell you the most convincing reason to you why you should not do it.
Yeah.
And I've recently got into meditation, and a very specific kind of meditation from Korea called subtraction meditation, and it very much complements this theory of the mind being the thing that it's basically, you know, this meditation basically says that, you know, our whole life we've just taken pictures of our experience, and so we're just kind of living by projecting our experience onto the world, and we're actually not living in the real world at all. We're living in like this tomb of our mind that we're just projecting what has already happened and is dead, and we're just projecting this experience that we've had onto actual reality.
Yeah.
And so to try to at least notice that why I think I shouldn't do it is just a very old dead thing.
Yeah.
Like it has nothing to do with the moment of now, to just do this thing and not lay over all the excuses and all of the kind of the thing that really, I don't know, stops you is just you feel like you have all this evidence of why it wouldn't work out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, our own brains can ruin everything for ourselves.
Everything.
But I do love this idea that you're saying where it's like really try to acknowledge that feeling and then try to say, like, maybe that's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Like, this resistance that you're having.
If you can't stop thinking about something, that's the thing you have to do.
Yeah.
You know, I have something in my mind that I have not started and I can't stop thinking about, and I have 12, you know, a dozen really good reasons why I shouldn't do it.
Yeah,
And
I
cannot
feel the
stop
same way.
thinking about it.
Even just talking about this, I'm like, I know,
the
my
thing,
idea. I know
and
the
everybody
thing.
listening to this podcast knows the thing.
Yeah.
You know the thing that you have to do.
I love it.
So do it.
I'm so glad. Thank you.
Yeah,
that was
welcome.
perfect.
Thank you, Amy.
You're
Thanks
really
for having
great,
me.
and I'm so glad that we got to talk.
Thank you.
My next chat was with filmmaker ZOE WARD. Zoe's short film, Soft and Pink, was made as her MFA thesis presentation at UCLA. I was excited to talk to Zoe about writing and directing her movie, as well as composing both of the film's musical numbers. I was also fortunate enough to moderate the Q&A for Zoe's short program. Here, we discussed the theme of good people doing bad things. Your chance to see Soft and Pink is tonight, Monday, October 28th at 6 p.m. at the Galaxy Highland Movie Theater.
I just finished my MFA at UCLA. I went into the directing path, and I actually finished it. I graduated a week before I gave birth, so I'm actually a new mom.
Oh my God!
And yes, it's true. I started the program when I was 30 years old, and for me, the reason it kind of took me a long time to make that decision, I felt like I was a writer from a very young age. I thought I was going to be a novelist or a poet, so I wrote constantly. I didn't really come from a very creative family. It was just sort of like, you do your thing. We don't know what it is, but you're having fun with it, and it's great.
Like vaguely supportive.
Yeah. So I didn't know what filmmaking was. I didn't know there were careers making movies. It wasn't on my mind at all. In college, I became, among my friends who are all poets and writers, I became known as the critic. And after a while, it really dampened my desire to write, because that was just how I was seen. So I kind of became the writer who didn't write, and I actually moved to New York to work in publishing after college, and that was my nickname, was the writer who didn't write. As a compliment.
That's a rough one.
I took it as a very high compliment, because what it meant is that I have always felt like I have a soul for story, that I really love creating worlds and imagining conflict, and putting all of these pieces together and see how they work and changing them up, all that thing. And then when I was in my late 20s, I was working. It was honestly the shittiest job I've ever had. I shouldn't say where it was, but it was it was like an arts admin job. I was like,
don't say where it is.
Yeah. And it was the most soul-sucking, boring job I've ever had. But it was at a college that offered free classes to their employees. So,
that all of those things that you've just said, even without the name of it, an arts admin at college, they all sound terrible.
Yeah.
The level of bureaucracy and drama is so high.
Very high. Very high.
Oh my
So
God.
I started taking free classes that were just
That's awesome.
learn how to use a Bolex camera and learn what screenwriting is. So I started taking those classes, and it was my life bulb. Yeah, it was my life bulb. It was my light bulb moment.
Life bulb.
Because I saw that what had been holding me up as a writer was the fact that I really loved the iterative process of filmmaking. I loved that you wrote something down and it had to change, because you had to film it, and you couldn't film it in exactly the way that you wrote it. And then once you filmed it, you couldn't keep it. It was not going to be the same thing that you wrote. And then the thing that you filmed had to be edited. And so you had a chance to tell the story again through editing. And to me, the opportunity that filmmaking affords you of just not having to box something up and put it away right away. It was like, oh, this is what I should be doing. This is what people have been telling me when they say I'm a critic and not a writer. It's that I don't look at a creative project and say that's the best it's going to be, goodbye, the end, moving on to the next thing. I want to see it grow. I want to see it get better, and I also want collaboration. I don't think an artistic product. There are geniuses out there who just take the lump of clay and form it into a brilliant work of art. Most of us need other people. We need feedback. We need the world to inform what we're doing. And filmmaking is this really unique form where every step of the way you have to ask people for help, and you have to allow them to put their own mark on it, I consider myself a screenwriter. I went to school to be a director. What I love about directing is that I have this grand vision for a product I want to make, a creative vision, and I physically can't accomplish it without other people. So I have to find someone that I really trust to translate what I'm saying about the visuals of the film into the visuals of the film. I need my DP, I need my production designer, I need my actors to like be able to hear what I'm saying, which means I always have to be clarifying my own ideas and figuring out the best way to communicate them. And it also means I have to let go. That it's just like, I've explained it the best I can, you're interpreting it in a way that I was not expecting, and that's either an amazing thing or an awful thing, but it's just like, it is what it is, you know? This is what the world is, how it's kind of like hitting onto this product that I thought was like a done deal, but it's not. It's not.
I really love this idea that like the fact that things change and that each new process that becomes something different, but it's all still the same thing. It's like people. It's like us. You know what I mean? Like we become different people with each new journey that we go on, with each new adventure. And I love it too. Like a lot of people, you know, we want to be, especially writers, we want to be alone in a room. Don't talk to me, what's going on. Heck, I came into this room, I was like, there's so many people in here. Like, it's just like, the openness you have to the collaboration and to the other people, that's so great. And then like allowing them to make the changes and just deal with it, because I mean that's life. I mean, how many times have you gone out in the morning with a plan and then life just makes it different, and by the end you're like, well, I got 20% of that done, but I think I handled it, you know, not too bad.
Yeah.
It just makes me think, like, when you're talking about from screenplay to directing it to editing it, especially when you're part of all those processes, like, that's so wonderful, because it's like watching a kid, it's like raising your child, watching them go off and be an adult, and then watching them be a parent. Like, it's like the editing is like leading to another story. How will this story be told now in this new way? Other thing about editing, with reference to the short film that you have here at the festival, Soft and Pink, I did read that it is a short that is being submitted, but that you have the full feature-length film. Is it done or written? At what point in the process is that?
Sure.
You don't have to give me any secrets.
No,
or anything.
no secrets, no secrets. I want as many people as possible to know that I wrote the feature and that I want to make it.
I mean, because it's very like, you're like, what is happening? What's about to happen? What's going to go on?
Sure.
I love the fact that at the end, spoiler alert, I guess, I'm not going to say what happened, but like, you're like, wait, what's happening? Is she in trouble? What are they doing? What are they saying? What are the audience going to say? Like, right. Just the whole experience, I'm like, I could watch more of this. Also, P.S., side note, I love your lead actress so much, I want to like leave my husband and find her and marry her. But maybe also she's a good actor and it's just the character I love. But anyway, back to you and the process of the feature film.
Yes. So even as I was developing the script for the short and how I was going to direct it, I already had the feature in mind. I had this idea that the short would be this sort of capsule. Not necessarily that it would be a scene plucked from the movie, because
sure.
There's actually the antagonist combines the characteristics of two men who are in the feature that kind of act upon the protagonist in two very different ways.
Right.
So I kind of smushed all of that together. So it's not a scene plucked from it, but the idea that I wanted to get across is that this is a woman who is incredibly talented and finds herself sort of beset on all sides by the men in her life who are trying to keep her from having the kind of career that she wants. The feature is an expansion on that. It shows her rise to fame. It shows her relationship with, she has a female chaperone who is in the short, quite a few years older than her. They develop a romantic relationship. And it kind of becomes this sort of like Coen Brothers meets Thelma and Louise, where they kind of, someone accidentally dies and in the process of covering it up and trying to keep her career from being affected by it, they end up having to murder more people.
So, what a perfect time for a laugh.
fun with it.
Yeah. I watch all those shows.
Right,
Every time
right,
there's anything-
exactly.
I was just thinking, the show How to Get Away with Murder. It's
Yeah.
like every episode you're like, who's going to die?
Yeah.
Who's going to, the
Yeah.
lead?
Yeah.
When will they finally kill off the lead?
Yeah.
Like,
So for me, there's something I've always...
that's hilarious, and now makes me want to watch it so much more.
Yeah. I find, like... I think that there's an incredible catharsis that can happen in violent films.
Sure.
But I also feel a very strong disconnect from a lot of violent, murdery films that are out there.
Sure.
And to me, I think that there's a lot of room today to tell stories that have to do specifically with female rage, specifically with, we have these like female protagonists now that are like amazing, unimpeachable, who are being heroes and are, killing bad guys who are unequivocally bad. But what I don't see a lot of right now and what I want to see more of is our favorite female characters who are like our favorite male characters, where they're flawed. They don't know what they're doing. Things are stacked against them, and the way they respond is not necessarily the ideal way, but they're sort of like they're good people making bad decisions.
Yeah,
and
life.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that the sort of like cathartic, violent stuff about like what is female rage, how does it manifest, what's the fallout from that, and also just like what leads to that point, what creates a female killer. And I know there's this great TV series that's coming out now, and there's a lot of people who are like asking those questions because killers are great material for drama.
Plus, especially with the sort of new idea that women actually can do all the things.
Sure.
It's like, they can do all the things, like be CEOs and run everything.
Right.
P.S. They can also do the bad things.
Yes.
So.
But here's what I think is important too.
Yeah.
They do all the things, but women do not do them in the same way or for the same reasons. And I think there's this moment happening right now where people are saying, yeah, I wrote this screenplay and it's not going to sell because it has a male protagonist, so I'm just going to make it a female.
Right.
And I don't think that's something you can really do and have it be good drama, because there's going to be, because and I don't want to get into like biological determinism, but I do think testosterone is a element of violence that means that you're a lot more likely, men commit 90% of the murders, and I cannot believe that doesn't have something to do with the levels of testosterone. I have really bad back problems, and for a while I was taking steroid shots, and I would get like really roided out and want to just like do harm to people, and I was like, oh, wait, is this how men like feel when they're frustrated? Like, is this, there's this.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like for women, there's other types of things that impact their life that make them feel like violence is their only option, and it has to do, for me, I think of it as social alienation from self. This like gaslighting, this feeling like women can be made to feel like they are completely divorced from their interior self. They're a stranger to themselves. They're nothing. They're awful. And I think that kind of like pile on, not like this guy fucked with my shit, so I'm gonna kill him. It's more just like, I've lost who I am, and the only way through this is through you. Like you have to be out of the picture for me to find my way back to myself. So that's the kind of conflict that I'm trying to deal with in the feature, is just sort of like her becoming so beset and so apart from herself that the only way through is through this sort of like dramatic physical violence.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
I love it. That sounds so great, and I love the like detail with which you're like, thinking about it, and you seem to have done a lot of research, and even just the experience that you personally had, where you felt this rage, and you're like, oh, perhaps there is something hormonal about this. I mean, I think about that kind of stuff all the time. I'm members of lots of women's groups and stuff, and we'll be talking about sort of hormonal moments, and I'm like, I get so uncomfortable
talking about it, not because I like don't think anyone should hear about it, but because I'm like, I don't want to blame stuff on this. But I think if we were open to not just blaming women in a way that's like, oh, they're hormonal, so they X, Y, Z. It's like every human body has some hormones going on it, and if you try to feel what that is doing to you, you can navigate. Like, I teach acting classes and improv classes, and when I teach them how to do emotions, oftentimes people who sign up for an improv class are not trying to be an actor, but they're nervous about it. And so I have developed an exercise to go through emotions so that they could just they could do a monologue in the emotion and then feel their physical body for what it felt like. And then later, when they're on stage, I go, just reference that. If your jaw tightens when you're angry in real life, then when you get on stage, just tighten that jaw, and it'll help you get in an angry place in the scene. And I was like, because that's your natural thing. But through teaching that, I realized what my own personal emotion connectors were, and now when I feel my body being angry, I like specifically don't make big decisions, or like if I hear something in my head like, you should say this, I'm like, I shouldn't say that. No. You're like, oh, I'm super angry. I can feel it all through my body, so none of the words I'm about to say are good words. You're going to smile and nod and walk away and try to breathe. Like, but just the idea of recognizing that, like, you know, who knows? What if there are men out there who, like, don't even have the ability to recognize that their hormones are messing with them? And then they get angry and they think it's justified, like we all do when we're angry. But it's like, if you separate yourself from the animal we are, then maybe we can try to develop and learn new stuff. Weird tangent about hormonal, super into everything you're saying, though.
Yeah, and that kind of plays into, so in order to write both the feature and the short, I did a lot of research in a lot of different areas. I read a lot of biographies, and I read biographies of Peggy Lee, who is a really amazing songstress and songwriter in the 50s, who lost control of her career, kind of got control taken away from her. Patricia... Oh my God, I forgot her name. An actress, a theater actress in New York who is doing things in the same time. Leslie Gore, who is a teen, sang "It's My Party," wrote "It's My Party." Did she write it? Maybe that's not true. So all of these women in that time period, and kind of their own reflections on their own career and its successes and failures, and their own personal lives, which were often extremely revealing for really how flippant they were of things that today we would acknowledge as like extremely abusive situations. And I do think the idea of Queenie Carr, my protagonist, is that she's kind of a woman who is experiencing the same things that a lot of these other women were, but what these other women, because they wanted these careers, because they knew that they kind of had to toe the line about certain things, and just because they were a product of their times, which was, post World War II. And what I hate about 1950s nostalgia in the U.S. is that it leaves the impression that there has been some kind of like straight upward trajectory for women's lib in the U.S., where it was like, this was extremely particular to the 50s in a lot of ways, because during the war and even before that, there were women in the workforce. There were different ideas about gender roles and what women could do. And like, in Hollywood, the fucking movies of the 1930s and 40s have so many amazing, strong female characters. And then in the 1950s, it's Marilyn Monroe and Jane Mansfield, and it's like the blonde bombshell. And there was a change. And so the 50s are this very particular time where women kind of put blinders on a little bit of just like, I just have to do this shit and say that it's okay. Otherwise, I'm not going to get anything of what I want. And Queenie Carr is someone who kind of is unable to do that. She's unable to do that. She has the same ambitions and the same talent that these other women do, but she can't regulate her hormone. You know, she can't regulate her responses to her own emotions the way that a lot of women had to do. So in that way, it ends up being kind of like a reflection. She's not a modern woman in that way, but she is. She does have these kind of like contradictory. She doesn't have the evolutionary skills that a lot of those women had to have.
Yeah.
And that's how I'm trying to frame it, is like not that she's like better than the women around her, but she really doesn't have the capacity to toe the line.
You know, I talk about that all the time. Like, I'm from Boston, so I'm a little rougher.
Yeah.
And living in Texas, I just don't even notice like what's going on. Like I'll be totally oblivious to some terrible like people being mean to other people, and it's like, what? I didn't even. But you know, if somebody comes up or tries to mess around, I don't even take it. Like, I'm just like yell right back. It's all like, back it up, you know, like. And some people are like, what? Aren't you afraid to be? What am I afraid of? This guy? Get out of here. Like, I'll yell in your face. You want to see weird? I go weird. Yeah. But, and I think about that, like, when I hear all the women now talking about things that happen to them and different things, and I was like, man, my experience of the world is so different. And it's purely just because of the happenstance of how it worked out. So when I see her, even though, yeah, she seems a bit anachronistic in the world, it's like, no, like me, she just didn't think about these problems. It didn't occur to her that she would have to, like, deal with somebody telling her, like, no, but I'm here to help you. I want to do this music. I'm the musician. Great, be good to me. And it's like, why are you being mean? I don't understand. I feel that way all the time, especially with creative stuff. There gets to be so much politics. And then I'm always like, why are we all mad? Like, but aren't we still doing the thing? It seems fine, right? No? Okay. So I identify with Queenie a lot in that she's like, doesn't want to take any crap and doesn't understand why she should. I've always felt that way. I am, however, a modern woman, I suppose. But tell me, as the last question, what for you is, like, what are you working on right now? What's in your head? You don't have to give me any, like, secret stories that you're, like, you know, don't want to share because you might sell them or whatever. But, like, what's the exciting sort of idea that you have in your head, or what sort of... Are you going to research more, you know, women and their, you know, tendency towards crime, or are you going to work on something else? What's the thing that you're focused on right now?
Yeah, I would say, you know, in really broad strokes,
that's all I need.
A lot of my work is kind of always going to be, you know, women making bad decisions for really good reasons. I just find those stories really compelling. So the project that I'm working on now, I just wrote a TV pilot that's kind of like a sci-fi drama. I like the shorthand for it is like, it's sort of like X-Files meets My So-Called Life. It's this teen who's maybe a little bit too autobiographical, but who's just like really, really struggling and ends up kind of in the crosshairs of this like intergalactic conspiracy that has to do with this alien race that's trying to pull humankind back from the brink of self-destruction. And so it's kind of this, it sounds so trite, but it's a story of alienation. It's a story of like, you know, a young woman who feels like the adults in her life don't have her best interests at heart, which is often true for you know, teenagers, especially teenage girls and black boys. You know, it's like we think that adults are supposed to take care of us, but usually by the time you're 14, they don't really. They're looking after themselves. They don't really see you as a child anymore.
As well, like, you have a baby, I have a baby. I think if parents are as winging it as I am, then it's a wonder we're all here.
Sure.
Like, and even that, the idea of getting to a certain point, I feel like as a person, your perspective is what makes you make your decisions. And so parents sometimes are just older and past as part of their journey to the point where they
can't understand what you're going through because they went through it. They're about 20 years past it, and they can't come back. I mean, the number one thing for the world that could be helpful is empathy, but if nothing else, you know, just to recognize the different parts of your life and how, you know, giving somebody a chance and trying to see it from their point of view. Like, it's like, I don't understand. Please tell me what you're feeling, because the way I'm looking at it, you're doing these bad things that I don't like, but you want to, so tell me why you should. But not too many people are having those calm conversations with their kids.
Yeah, and mostly I'm just like super eager. I want to be in a writer's room. I want to write for TV, because to me, like, going back to like how I got into this game in the first place is like, I love collaboration. I love that you can get into a room with people who have different perspectives, people who are younger than me and a little bit closer to, you know, those feelings of being an alienated teenager. You know, I just like, I really want to see this story come alive in the context of like a lot of people coming together to talk about, like, you know, these moments in which they weren't heard and how they get themselves heard over a vast cacophony.
It is interesting to hear a bunch of different people's stories, because you're like, whoa, not only is it like, whoa, are we similar, but sometimes it's like, whoa, that's so different from what I lived through. Like, and both of those, the similar and the difference, is so helpful when you're trying to get through your own trouble. Thank you, Zoe, for talking to me, for sharing so much great stuff with me.
It was an absolute pleasure. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
No, you're great. Awesome. In my next interview, I chatted with filmmaker Drew Rosas. Drew and his creative partner, Nick Summer, have created a funny web series called Shangri-La. Listen in as we chat about the magic of editing, doing PA work on commercials, and Drew's newfound love of composing music. Check out the upcoming AFF 26 screening of Shangri-La on Tuesday, October 29th at 3:45 p.m. at the Rollins Theater, or go to the Shangri-La website and watch the whole series at home.
Theater, there was definitely theater around. I didn't get as much into theater as film and video making. I sort of jumped right into that as a kid.
Camcorder, all that.
You know, the dad's camcorder, and realized it was the magic of editing that did it for me.
On the camcorder with the VCR?
2 VCRs.
Yep.
Play, record, and when you realize you can do a shot, reverse shot, like, that blew my mind as a kid. It just blew my mind, and I was like, I'm making it. It felt like a real movie.
Yeah.
And that once I kind of saw that movie magic and that I could create that, I was just hooked from there. I'm still doing it now. This is like 30 years later. I'm still at it. So, yeah, I kind of just got the bug. And then I used it in high school. You know, I went to this small town high school in Menominee, Wisconsin, and they always wanted you to, you know, write your book report or your paper, your essay or what have you. And I would always say, like, can I do a video project instead? And they're like, of course you can. That's like above and beyond. Literally, no, for me that was fun and just way, like, I'd have fun with my friends, easier for me, and I wouldn't have to do all the writing and rewriting and stuff. I just make a video. So I figured out this little hack in the high school system, and then I just did video projects for every single class. And got great.
They really let you do it.
They let me do it, and from their perspective, it was above and beyond. I was thinking outside the box, and they encouraged it, and I got really great grades in all these videos, and I just had fun doing it. So,
man,
then I was kind of hooked, and then ended up going to film school after high school.
I bet the filter of that really actually helped you learn better, because you were able to filter it through something you loved, as opposed to just rote memorization like regular school. Like, you're like, yeah, I'll make this into a movie, and then you actually have to look it up and know stuff to make the movie, and then you learn it so much better. That's so cool.
Yeah. And
I'm glad that they praised you for it and weren't like, all right, enough videos.
I think it was at that one point in, like, the late 90s where the video editing wasn't quite as massively available yet. Like, the computer systems weren't quite there yet.
Yeah.
I mean, they were there, but they weren't used. So it was sort of like a new thing for them, and they couldn't believe it. Like, it was blowing these teachers' minds before they realized how easy that is to do.
Yeah.
And now everyone has
they
that.
Couldn't do it.
Yeah, so I think I kind of just got ahead of the curve and got lucky in that regard. But.
Yeah. Hey, well, you know what, though? I mean, it's a wonderful thing when people do things differently than the rest of the crowd, and I bet you that in and of itself was like, this kid's great. He's standing out in his own way. He's making it work. So where'd you go to film school?
In Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I went to Peck School of the Arts, which is an art school within the University of Wisconsin program, and it was an experimental film program. So it was based on avant-garde, experimental filmmaking, handmade films, and 16 millimeter film. Wow. So I learned first on 16 millimeter before video. I mean, I had used video and I'd done it in high school, like I said, but in that film program, you learn first to cut and splice film, shoot and process your own film, and light it.
Like really cut it. Like
cutting
all
it,
day.
cutting
yeah.
it. Like when you cut it, there's no undo button.
Right.
There's no Command Z.
Yeah.
You make sure that's the frame you want to cut on.
Yeah.
And you can always trim. You can keep trimming down, but you can't really. It's hard to add it back. You can a little, but you'll get like some jumping around in the film strip. So, you got to be like really, and also shooting. You get a roll of 60 millimeter film. I think gives you 4 minutes of time.
Wow.
And so you're very particular about where you aim that camera and what you're going to film. You think about it, you talk about it, you plan it, you rehearse it, you do it over and over, and then you do one take, and that's probably your take. Yeah. Maybe you'll do two if you're really feeling risky, but because every time when you shoot on film, you got to pay for it 3 times. You have to buy the film, which is expensive, then you got to process the film, which is another cost, and then you have to basically reprocess again for the master. So it's like,
wow,
you're really paying for it 3 times, and
yeah.
So it adds up. So you have to be very, very intentional with what you're doing, I guess.
I'm so glad they taught you that. I mean, I've talked to a lot of people that went to film school that did not get practical knowledge. So the fact that like you physically went and like cut film and learned how to do that kind of stuff, that hands-on stuff must be so helpful, especially even now, like just feeling the ease of the digital, or like, just keep talking, we can roll forever because it doesn't matter as much.
The cards are getting bigger and bigger, and you can just roll and roll and roll. So you can just be like, let's just start filming. We'll kind of figure it out as we go. But there's something about film that trains you to be very specific about what your vision is and what you're going for, and just and executing it. I'm guilty as anyone to like using the the luxury of digital technology, but it's nice to have that at my roots, just like learning that other way first. And
it'd be like going, listen, I don't need surgery, I have these leeches, I'm fine. Like you're like, no, you have the technology, use it. Like absolutely, make your stuff as great. Like it went with you. Like as you learned with it, and now your like skill is at the height of the technology, so that you can use it and do much better things. I mean, I'm glad. It's just cool that you got to be part of all of the, and also clearly we're in a similar generation, but like that we got to see all of the technology, like from the really difficult actual film, now we're into the digital, we got to play with it all.
Yeah.
And that's really great.
Yeah, I feel actually really lucky being on that cusp of like, I guess I'm like maybe one of the first millennials. Like I'm the oldest millennial, but being of the generation that, I am the oldest.
The oldest millennial.
I'm the oldest one.
Sure. He's 73. He's a great millennial.
But it's just something nice about it. I love having touch phones in my past. Like in my childhood, you had a landline, and then like I'm not too old where the technology was inaccessible to me. I still had. I'm able to learn it and pick it up really quickly, but I still got to have like that nostalgic period in my childhood. It was like that transition happened right when I was like coming of age, and it was just like I feel really lucky to have kind of both of those sides of the millennium in my history. So
absolutely. I mean, if only just because you're so educated in a way that like makes you just a better filmmaker because of everything you've been able to go through.
Yeah.
So after college, you've learned everything. You're so great now. What's your journey after that? How do you get from Milwaukee to LA? How many movies you making? Is it you and your friends? How's it going?
Yeah, right after I started actually working in an internship on a feature documentary when I was a senior in film school, and then
Oh, cool.
That led to one of the producers on it was also a producer for commercials shooting in Milwaukee. And so I basically went straight into being a production assistant right out of school. And just started doing commercial work. And I worked for about maybe a year and a half, 2 years, just doing commercials and just making money and trying to have a career in it. Money's nice. And then I hit this point where I was like, you know, I like the money, it's fine, and it goes a long way in Milwaukee, but, you know, I kind of like lost that. There's something nice about film school where you're forced to be creative. You have these deadlines, you have things that keep you active in that field and exercising those muscles. And so there's something about, I just had that drive, I needed to get back into making stuff. So I saved up some money, and then I just basically decided I'm going to put everything into a film, and I came up with this concept. It was originally called Rocky Trails, although I ended up making the title changed when I created it into a film called Blood Junkie, which is a horror comedy shot in Wisconsin, and it's basically a 75-minute, really short feature film that's just ridiculous 1980s throwback, fun comedy horror to the extremes. And I got all my friends together, we created a massive team, and that really started sort of like our filmmaking tribe. Even like the people I work with on that project, I'm still working with many of them now.
Awesome.
The main actor in it is actually my co-creator on my most recent project, Shangri-La. So like, this is about 10 years now we've been working together.
Yeah.
And it was just like, let's see how this works. I don't know. I didn't know what it was going to take to make a feature film. I didn't quite understand like what would happen with it, but it was just throwing myself into it, and I had such a great experience that it was just kind of had to keep going from there. So
yeah, man, that's so fun that the people that you worked with even back then, you're still working with. Do you find that that's important for you, like finding collaborators you can trust, and when you trust them, do you like continue working with them for a while? I mean, you know, there's a lot of wacky people that can mess with stuff, so when you find somebody good.
Yeah, you know, and it's just like anything, you know, you naturally filter out the relationships that don't click.
Yeah.
And, you know, with Nick Summer, we just see eye to eye on literally like 98% of the things.
It's awesome.
And we just have the same goals, we have the same sense of humor, which is really hard to kind of come by someone that has the same comedy leanings as you. So it just, our partnership just sort of grew from there, whereas I've worked with a lot of other people that, you know, sometimes it's fine and sometimes it's just like normal, but it's the ones that really click that you keep around, and you sort of just naturally filter out the wacky ones.
Yeah,
if they're the wrong kind of wacky.
Right. Yeah, I was definitely using wacky as a pejorative there, for sure, even though it could be quite sweet.
Yeah.
No. I was like meanies and terrible, sort of like,
I mean, I've had some
dramatic
bad run-ins.
Personalities.
Oh.
You know, there's a lot of that.
Anytime you're in a creative, and the thing, especially in filmmaking, there's so many different creative people you have to collaborate with, because you're really incorporating all these different fields into one medium. So you're going to run into creative differences.
Yeah.
It's just going to happen, and you know, you have to. A big part of, I think, being a filmmaker is balancing that all out, and we always try to make our shoots first and foremost really fun to be a part of. You're not going to make a great paycheck from us. You're going to be like doing favors, working like crazy hours and doing ridiculous stuff, but you're going to be having a time of your life, and the stories will last forever, and hopefully the friendships will too. So like, as long as people are having fun, you're just going to have such a better crew and time out there on set.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When did you decide to start exploring the idea of a series as opposed to feature films?
That was with Shangri-La, my most recent project. So I did Blood Junkie, and then I moved to LA and did all the editing, living out of my friend's apartment and crashing on his couch and just like editing on my computer on the side of the room. And then I ended up shooting another feature horror movie with Nick a couple years later called Billy Club. And in the process of making those two feature films and taking it to the film market in LA and finding a sales agent and selling it and distributing and that whole side of the industry that as a creative you don't always think about, you know, like I put so much time into the ideas of creating and not so much into the business of it. And it's just like, as I've come up in the last 10 years, just gotten more and more exposed to that business side of it and how important it is to sort of, as much as it's not quite as fun, like nobody wants to go, I mean, maybe some people do, but I personally don't need to do the networking, schmoozing, selling myself. Like, it's a little awkward for me. I like my work to sort of speak for itself.
Yeah.
But you got to do it. You got to put yourself out there, and I'm getting a lot better at it, and just sort of figuring out what works for my personality to put it out there. But one of the things that we learned with the features and that whole process is that I kept running this problem where you spend all this time, like years on these movies, writing it, and pre-production, shooting, editing takes forever, visual effects, whatever you have, and then like negotiating a deal. By the time you get it ready, maybe you're playing at a festival, you're trying to promote this project, and you run into this problem where, okay, I have a thing done, but I can't show it to you yet because I have to save my premiere for like some festival down there, some theoretical screening that's going to maybe happen, and then you submit and you get rejected to all these festivals, and then you're like waiting and waiting and waiting just to put it out there. Yeah. And it was like this weird thing where it's like, we make this to show it. We make these projects to show to people. The audience is such an important part of the equation that I wanted to sort of bridge that gap a little bit. And that's where like the idea of taking a feature-length idea and breaking it into chapters and making episodic version of it really started to appeal to myself and Nick. And we sort of were thinking, hey, if we can make a little bite-sized piece, now I'm only competing for 8 minutes of your time, maybe 10 minutes of your time, versus 90-minute feature. If you're surfing on Netflix or Amazon or wherever you find your films, it's hard to get someone to invest 90 minutes into your project, especially if you're independent and you're working with up-and-coming actors, and like you don't have a studio, you don't have the promotion and marketing teams behind you. You're doing it all yourself. Yeah. It's really hard to break through. And so our thinking
especially with the algorithm. Like, how do you even break through the algorithm? Like, so they see you. You know?
I'm still trying to figure that out.
And
that's still an issue with the episodic too. But I just feel like as far as like getting someone to take a chance on a project, it just seems like a 10-minute bite-sized thing that you can watch is a lot easier for people to jump in and easy for them to digest, and then you can kind of hook them in on characters, and then hopefully they'll go and check out the next episode. You can also don't have to do it all in one sitting. You can just pick one off here and there. And it's just like seem to align better with the way people consume content nowadays, and so that was sort of the thinking behind episodic.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially too, since you did commercials, you can sort of see the shortening it up, like the super tight. How do you get the message out in 30 seconds? Now you get 11 minutes. You're like, I got this. No problem.
Yeah, that's luxury suddenly.
Between 72 minutes and 30 seconds, I got the middle ground.
But I still really like the feature-length story arc.
Sure.
And so this project, like when you string it all together, we have 13 episodes of Shangri-La in season 1, and they all come out to about just over 2 hours. So if you watch them back to back, it is like watching a feature film. Actually, one of the next phases for us is we're going to cut the whole project into a strung together feature version.
Yeah.
And so it kind of works both ways. You get that larger storytelling arc, and characters can develop over a little more time, but then you still can like just break it up and have a little bite-sized piece for people to consume.
Nice.
Yeah.
And a good way to like put the business in too. You've had to deal with it, how to make it fun for yourself. Let's make these bite-sized pieces for people to grab. Super awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. And I also like the idea that you can put it together as a full-length film and sell it in a different way, or even just get the audience that wants the longer versus the audience that wants the shorter.
Yeah, and part of the thinking behind that is an idea that I learned at a different panel at a different in LA at a filmmaker group, which is this idea that if you take the series and you make a 90-minute feature version, then you can sell that on international market. So you can basically recoup some of your expenses by just picking off a few $1,000s here and there from foreign markets, because they'll take a feature film over a series. Like the series will kind of have its home in the U.S., and then it can be sort of another version of it to put out to the rest of the world.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And what a smart idea. I totally forget. I mean, I've talked to like 2 or 3 international filmmakers already, and I totally forgot about it. Yeah. Like, there's a whole other world you can be selling to.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe Japan will love it. They're like, is this what Los Angeles is like? I think it's fun.
Well, comedies are always a little tricky when they translate to different cultures, though. That is one thing I've heard.
Yeah.
Like, the things that, sense of humors are so specific to where you grew up and what you know, and you're referencing things that maybe we get, but might not play in China or might not play, but you never know.
Yeah.
But hopefully, you can find a couple other little markets for it and, have a feature version of it too, so.
Also, while I don't know, I'm going to posit that probably in other countries there's people that have hit hard times and they want to watch a hero go from his lowest point to figuring out how to be a little bit better in his life. Everyone's kind of has natural ups and downs. I find that the parts that I read and the parts that I watched of the series are very, connected. Like, all of us feel these things. All of us have had hard times and not wanted to admit it, or how to move forward when we're stuck in like a dream that is like, no, you can get your dream, you just have to adjust slightly. Even the lessons that you've told me that you personally have learned are like you making adjustments, knowing that the world, like if you had been like, no, I'm doing it this way, 16 millimeter forever in 2019, it'd be like, sorry man, like you can't do it. Adjustments are necessary, and it's I feel like everyone could watch your web series and really feel connected to it.
Yeah, try to really make a universal story of striving for something bigger, or confronting the world, and the characters that want something more out of life and then are sort of like stuck treading water. It is a universal story, and this is a project. People always say, write what you know and make what you know, and that was partially when I started brainstorming this idea. It was like, what do I know? Well, I know like the struggle of the film world and the entertainment industry and sort of the absurdities that come along with that. So let's dive into that world for a little bit. But rather than tell it from like a very common perspective of like, the middle class struggle, we were like, what if we put our characters on the streets and saw like what does the industry look like from that vantage point? And it is this phenomenon in Los Angeles that I've encountered since moving out there, is that there's a huge street transient population, and people, when you really stop and like meet people and talk to them, you start to realize that like a good number of people are like in LA for the industry, or like were part of it at one point, and their singing career didn't pan out, but now they're going to be like the best at this karaoke night, and they like own that instead, or like people that had a photo studio and it didn't quite pan out, and so now they're like hawking camera gear on the street or something. And it was just like an interesting thing. I was like, oh, that's fascinating. And I really wanted to sort of give a voice to people that often are very one-dimensional in movies. Like homelessness is always portrayed in sort of like this really specific way where it's like, that is the defining factor of that character is the homelessness. And we really want to do it in a way where we don't really talk about it like that. It's like these are just people like anybody else with their own dreams and struggles, and like the circumstances that they may find themselves in are not the defining factors of their lives. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, awesome. Sorry, I got deep into that. I'm all like, yeah, I am going to be okay. Oh, wait, it's not about me. Awesome. That's super, really, really great. One last question just to wrap it up. Tell me what for you is an idea or something that you've been working on that you're like excited about, even if it's something you're excited to talk about today or here at the festival, or something you're hoping to learn. Like, what's the thing, or what's your jam? What you've been thinking about lately, creatively?
That's I will say one of the things that's really been kind of like scratching at me creatively is music, which I know is sort of out of left field, but I did the soundtrack for this show. I composed it, and it was just like such a magical experience just to make all the songs and like learn some new software and learn how to like compose music in a way. I mean, I've always played music, but took it to a new level, and it was so great. I was just like thinking, all the hours I put into these films, it's just a huge number. It's like years of work, and I would love to just sort of take a little hiatus and just only be a musician for like a little period of time and just see what I can do by like focusing just on the soundscape world and where that goes and where that leads. So that's sort of like one thing that's been sort of like coming at me.
Yeah, you composed all the music. That's so amazing.
Yeah.
That's so great.
Yeah, I really had to do everything. This is an indie project at heart, so
For real.
I'm doing the shooting, the directing, co-wrote it with Nick, and did the editing and visual effects on my computer, and then even composed the music. So, and it's really my baby. It's my baby. Yeah.
Well, good. Thank you so much for talking to me and sharing your stories about Shangri-La. I really appreciate you talking to me and sharing even your creative hopes and dreams. I hope everybody gets to make the kind of project that you get to make.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. And if anybody wants to check out the show, you can find it on Amazon if you look for Shangri-La, or check our website at shangrilashow.com.
Yeah, good.
The next conversation was a total surprise, and I couldn't be happier that I connected with him. PAREKH is one of the most delightful people I have ever met. Par wrote, directed, and acted in his short film, The Happy. He was sweet and funny in this interview, and you're going to love his stories. You can see Par's short film, The Happy, on Tuesday, October 29th at 1 p.m. at the Rollins Theater.
Whole life, like, I've never worked on a project that didn't have, like, a bunch of badass, smart women on it, so it never was, like, a weird enough. So I moved to LA, and suddenly I'm like, how come this feels wrong? How come they're all just white bros? And then so when we made The Happy, my whole entire crew was women. But I always tried for 60%, and it was like 99%. It was me, like a gay sound dude, and like a guy showed up on set who was a friend who was a white dude, and like all women. And we only realized on set, like, why is this set so much fun? It's like, oh, we just made this happen.
Wow. That's so interesting. So where were you before LA that you had this idyllic lifestyle of having just like working with women and being like fully diverse everywhere?
Well, New York.
Oh,
part
great.
of it, and I wasn't officially in kind of the industry as it stands now. Like, I was adjacent to it. I started off as a good Indian, so I was a we worked in a neurobiology lab.
Oh.
But I was only
like, I don't know what that means, but okay.
Big,
biology
big,
makes
yes,
sense.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I got back into movies, and it was just always really just smart, talented people that happened to be women and what we now call people of color, and you just didn't even think about it as a thing. You're like, oh, you're smart and talented. Cool, let's work together.
Yeah. No, I totally understand what you mean, because I also have a similar thing where, like, everything has just been, people are mostly nice to me, and like it's worked out, and I've done lots of projects, and I'm always happy about them. They work or they don't, and I'm having a good time. But then I met all these other people, and I was like, why are you mad? I don't understand. What's happening?
Why is this
like,
so
wait, aren't
hard?
we having fun? But we're making a movie.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
Isn't this funsies?
Yes, it's hard, but it should be fun.
Yeah.
Like, no one wants to be on. It's such hard work as it is, and so soul giving. Why would you want to, make it even harder with nonsense?
So how'd you get from biology lab to back into film? Start film, I guess.
Well, I was back in it because I was one of these crazy people in college, and I had 3 majors that had nothing to do with each other. This is a long time ago. This was 20 years ago. So, not to date myself, but
I graduated college in 2000. It's okay.
We are the same age then.
I was like, don't worry.
Okay, so
I was very impressed with that 2000 year. I'll tell everyone.
It was technically 01, but
still,
still counts.
Solid beginning.
Solid, that's right. It's a new millennium.
Right?
Yeah, we're
representing
powerful.
it. We're the good generation.
We're the generation straddling. They call us Xennials. Have you read this yet?
No, tell me about it.
It was like people born between like 76 and 83,
Except?
Something like that, where they straddle. They're not full-on millennials insofar as they didn't have, full internet Facebook capabilities in, say, high school.
Right.
But they're not full Gen Xers, where that didn't come on board until after they graduated college.
Yeah.
Where we were like, we grew up without the internet. Totally, fully. We remember a time before the internet.
Right.
But we're not total Luddites. We're like, oh yeah, this
there
is
are computers.
They're computers, and we know how to work them, and we're not like, I don't know how to do this. You know, it's like, what's an email? You know, we like know how to use technology. So we like take some of the good from the millennials and some of the good from the
I like
Xers.
this. This sounds like a good plan.
I'm like, we got a pretty good generation.
I feel good about this.
Yeah, we're good. So I mean, now that we've established that we are amazing.
Now that we are totally kindred spirits and the same person.
Right.
So what were your three majors that were totally unrelated?
It was film, philosophy, and biology. But also, in my mind, they're related. But
yeah, like as a human being,
as a human being, I'm like, oh, I'm curious about these things. What? I basically majored in curiosity.
Yeah.
I was like, but God, it's so funny to be talking about college. I don't talk about college, but
it shapes you, you know.
It shapes you,
and clearly that's when you did film for the first time before you took a break to be an amazing scientist for a short period of time.
I wasn't that amazing. I wasn't on the bench. I worked in the lab while I deliberated going to med school. Like a good Indian, and
you put some things in some test tubes. Somebody got an answer. I feel like that was a win.
I did it.
Yeah.
And then I ended up writing for this film magazine. I was an editorial assistant for Film Journal International.
Fun.
Loved it. It was so much. I mean, like, I was a lot of data entry, but my editor was so nice and wonderful, and let me write some reviews, which were, of course, the pretentious ramblings of a 21-year-old ex-film student.
That was great.
But they were great. My friends to this day, my close friends, make fun of me. They'll like dig them up on Google and quote them back to me. It's like, oh, yeah, I deserve all of that. You know, it's like, it's fun being 21 and writing reviews.
Yeah.
You know?
Someday you'll turn 60 and frame them and put them on the wall.
Oh, my God, man. God willing. You know, right? And so then one of my old film professors hired me to be an assistant editor, then eventually an associate editor on a documentary he was making about Liberia during the end of their civil war. And the main editor was this woman named Vanessa Procopio Humo, who is just this amazing editor. She like came from she did like edited Oz and stuff.
Whoa!
And then did this doc in between projects, and I learned so much under her. Again, like that, I didn't even think about it. Like an amazing badass woman who's insanely smart, and she's just like a person that I learned under for a second. And then I kind of to this editing trajectory, and then did fashion and commercials, and shot. Well, I'm not going to call it propaganda, but I shot films for the Haitian government for the World Economic Forum in Davos. So it's like my career has taken me all over the place. And
you're like, I'm not going to say propaganda.
I didn't
wink,
say it.
wink.
I mean, I said it, but I didn't say it.
No,
I didn't mean it.
No, absolutely
not. I mean, it's radio, so you can't hear me wink. It's all audio. So, yeah. What is the sound of a wink?
You do a job, whatever. Wink. That's what you just say. The word wink. That's what you have to say. That's how it works. Now, when you're a film person, sometimes you're just taking a job. Like, I'm sure they were like, want to go to Haiti? And you're like, yeah, but it's gorgeous there. Let's go.
And I love
and
that
you're
stuff.
doing stuff, holding a mic, and you're like, what's this guy saying? Who cares?
And also, I just love shooting. I love being behind the camera.
Yeah.
I love I'm one of these obnoxious people that has done every role behind the camera too. So, and that gives me a deep respect of my limitations, of where I'm like, oh, I can't do this. I need to hire a DP for this. Oh, I can't get this far. I need to do a sound person for this. But I love shooting, and I came up editing. So editing is kind of my first career path in the film world, which informs directing in every possible way and informs writing, rhythms and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So when you're shooting in Haiti, I was in the Himalayas shooting for a few months, and you're just like, okay, we're just out here making this work. I'm behind the camera. We're just improvising, and now I'm going to cut some of it sometimes, and you're like, oh, it's trial by fire with the massive film education, which just means watching lots and lots of movies. That's really the best way. Just watch stuff and then make stuff. Watch stuff and make stuff. And then you'll get good at it eventually.
I'll do an at-home film school. Sounds good.
There you go. Take your degree. That's all it takes.
I'm in. I'll write one on a piece of paper. I have a degree. With just film. At-home film.
At-home film.
Yeah.
.net.
So you're, wow, now we're buying websites. All right.
.edu, we got to get credited for that. But
right?
.net for now?
This is a nonprofit for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
I'm with you.
We're making millions. But giving it right back into the nonprofit.
Back, exactly. 501c3, baby.
So... Oh man! So you're doing stuff in New York, working at the biology lab. You've moved on. Now you're an editor. You're traveling the world, doing all sorts of projects. are you still working with the same editors that you worked with in the first documentary, or you've met new people and you're moving on?
I met new people. I was cutting stuff on my own. I
Great.
made. I wrote and produced a short film with Ben Zeitlin called Glory at Sea, which was in 2008, and that was maybe 10 years ago. We made a music video together, and that was, we premiered at South by Southwest, and that was a lovely experience. And then I kind of went back into my kind of bizarre career path of just doing
biology.
No. Doing. I didn't go back to bio, thank God. But I just was doing fashion and commercials and these documentaries and.
Right.
These things. I kind of went that route, and then I
bet you there's pretty good money. I mean,
it was money. Yeah, there was.
Money.
It was a nice living. It was a very nice living. And then at a certain point, I was helping my friends. I like helping my friends make their things. And then
it's hard to separate from that, when you get to make money. I was a stage manager for a lot of years because I just was like, but I get to do theater and get a paycheck. Mm-hmm. And then when I almost got to a level where it was like, if you take this next job, you're a stage manager for the rest of your life. Mm-hmm. I was like, no, thank you, I can't do this. And they were like, what? Huge opportunity. And I was like, I know, but I don't want to be that.
It's
like,
such
and
a
you
real
have to
conundrum.
make this decision. Yeah.
Well, I had this other weird aspect to it where I didn't use the A word until maybe 4 years ago. Artist.
Yeah.
Which it took some therapy and some figuring out, because my culture, Gujaratis, I'm Gujarati, which is a state in northwest India. Okay. I was born in Texas, believe it or not. I mean, and when you see the short, you'll hear a wonderful song that explains that. But our culture, Gujarati culture, is not super supportive of the arts. We're very business-minded. We're very... I don't want to say anything on record, but Gujaratis, it turned out, as I learned over the course of time, our culture did not give us an opportunity to see what an artist was, because that's just a hobby.
Sure.
And so I would call myself a filmmaker, or film editor, or something like that, but never an artist. And thankfully I had supportive parents, who were saying, you just follow your dream, you can do that, which most Gujarati parents wouldn't do that in the arts realm in that generation.
Yay, parents.
Yep. And I embrace that term where I go, what? I feel like I'm not this gun for hire thing. I have these ideas. My friends say I have all these ideas that need to be expressed out in the world. I wish there was something that I could be like that. And my shrink was like, yeah, it's called an artist. I'm like, no, I'm not an artist. An artist is like a person who devotes their life to this. Like, you're an artist and maybe that's what you should do. And I go, oh, okay. And of course, I just leaned into that, listened to the advice of all my friends.
Yeah.
And I got back from the Himalayas, from the shoot, and I had endured a lifetime of cold up there. Got back to a New York winter and just packed my car up, drove out to LA, and the rest is history.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you were done. It was the cold that kicked you out.
It was the cold that kicked me out. I still, don't get me wrong, I miss my home. I moved around so much as a kid that the only place I consider to be home with a capital H is Red Hook, Brooklyn. That is where my heart lives. That is where my soul lives. That is where my community is. But I moved out to LA and making it work and made a short about my experiences there, which is wonderful.
Yeah. So how long ago did you move to LA?
I moved there 4 years ago.
4 years ago.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, 4 years ago was when you decided you were an artist.
Yep.
And that's when you moved to LA.
And where do artists go? Los Angeles.
You're right. You're not wrong.
A lot of them go to New York. A lot of them go to New Orleans. But I said, let me make this. The zeitgeist hit. Everyone said, LA is different from what it was 20 years ago, and it is.
Sure. You can live wherever you want. It's really just you in a place.
That's the smartest thing that I learned, and you said it really well. It's like, it's really not about the place, it's about you.
Yeah.
I
mean, I don't know. I like living here in Austin, but I could live anywhere. It doesn't matter. I lived in New York City for a while. It was great there, too. But people have their own hang-ups, and they got their own issues with, trying to deal with it. I mean, I can't tell you the number of people I am, actively trying to get to move to Los Angeles now, where I'm like, I love you, and unless you want... I was like, do you want to teach at the improv school for your life? Right. Because I do, and that's great, but that's not you. That's not your life.
Well said.
I'm in my 40s with a husband and a child. I want him to go to school in Austin, and I'd like to continue to work at the improv theater. You need to be this actor. You need to be the director, or at least try. Go see what's up.
Right.
Try it out.
That's the best advice because, first of all, there are two things you said there that really resonate with me that I think is smart advice for anybody. One, there's no one path that is cookie cutter for everybody.
Yeah.
It's your path. That's what you want to do. And part of wisdom is syncing what's in your heart and soul with your exterior. And once that's in sync, you're wise and you figured it out, And the second thing is I moved around so much as a kid. I'm a nomad. I like traveling. It's like, try it. Just try it. You can always leave. Nothing is permanent forever.
Right.
And that's something when I talk to friends and people who have just lived in one place their whole life, I get it. I can empathize with that deep fear of trying something new. But I'll go somewhere, try it out for a couple weeks, and I'm like, no. And then come back. And again, I live a really charmed, blessed life where I get to travel for work. And all my money doesn't go to fancy cars or watches or anything like that. I spend it on plane tickets to crazy places and adventures,
Yeah.
And I will say, oh, can I live here? Maybe. Can I come back? Sure. I'll go visit my family out east all the time. So I'm like, I could get everything from every place and be content with it. So as much as I might gripe about LA or I might gripe about New York winters, I love them, I would say I love New York and I love the East Coast because that's where I'm from. And I'm growing to find the things I love about Los Angeles, mostly nature-based, honestly.
Yeah.
Nature, weather. I've got my community now of wonderful souls.
Yeah.
It just took a second like any place else. But you can always find it.
Of course, and it's
then
you.
leave. Yeah, it's me.
Yeah, it's the energy that you bring, and then people are drawn to you and want to be part of it. The name of your short is The Happy. Is it because when you went to LA you were very happy? I apologize, I haven't seen it before talking to you.
No, well,
tell me.
Of course. It's an absurdist short that's the first of a digital series we're doing. And it's based on my real life experiences in Los Angeles. For those listening at home, I am a brown man with long black hair and a big black beard. And I went to Los Angeles, the nexus of New Age and the wellness industrial complex. And they all thought I was a vegetarian guru. And I'm not. I was, born in Texas, raised in New Jersey on the East Coast. And my first day there, this woman across the street, she goes, oh my God, when I die, I want to be buried in your body. You're like a Greek island. Your heart chakra is so strong. And then I'll get things like, what's it like being raised Hindu? So much closer to spirituality than the rest of us. I'm like, whoa. Ooh. And thankfully, I like to see the best in people and approach things with humor and not dogma. So I will crack a joke and be like, oh, that's racist. Ha, ha, ha. And they're like, whoa.
Your super sweet racism is still racism.
And it's just, so it's about that. So the short is based on, this specific one is based on a couple of specific experiences, but in this version, it's an absurdist comedy in that my character doesn't speak. I'm deeply influenced by Buster Keaton. And the woman that greets me at the door thinks that I'm a past life regression healer. My character is very sad because his girlfriend texted him, or his ex-girlfriend saying, breaking up with him, and he sees a sign for hug therapy. And he's sad, so he's like, I'll try hug therapy. Goes there, and this woman thinks he's a past life regression healer. And it's a comedy of errors where they don't know what each other think. And she just talks, and projects everything onto him and thinks that he's a vegetarian. And he, of course, walks in the opening scene with a giant meat rib, with a giant beef rib in his mouth, and puts it in his bag, like the absurdist Monty Python style comedy that it is. And then when she says, I might kill myself if I found out there was meat in my house, the poor PAREKH character, the character who shares the same name with me, so it gets very confusing.
It's tough.
It's tough. He starts to empathize with, like, I need to get this bag out of the house. So it's just a comedy of errors ensues, including a couple of twists that I won't tell you about until you see it.
Don't tell me the twist.
But it's fun to not speak, to write a character that doesn't speak, and to write these scenes based in real life, but to have a stylistic absurdist angle on it, so it's not just straight, and it's also not finger wagging like that's racist. It's more just like told with empathy and heart, as silly as it is. It's kind of lesson teaching without teaching you a lesson.
Yeah, it's really hard to teach lessons. I feel like there's a lot of didactic films going on, so I think comedy is exactly the right way to go about it. I in a week or two, I'm teaching a satire class, so how to write it, because I feel like it needs to be that way. It needs to be as pleasant, as positive, as I was like, yeah, sure, you're trying to tell people that this thing is going on is wrong, but no one's going to hear it. if you are yelling at them about how it's wrong, you have to then frame it. And I love this silence that you have because it speaks so heavily even to the fact that they don't let you speak for yourself. They give you these preconceived notions. Oh, God, I can't even imagine the sheer level. You're so pleasant for the sheer level of well-meaning racism you probably receive on the daily.
Which is for me. I'm an absurdist at heart, so I find everything absurd. So that's whether it's funny or whether it's horrible or horrific is the right word. Whether it's funny or whether it's horrific, it's all absurd to me. So if you don't smile through it, you're just gonna suffer. So and your audience isn't gonna. I found your audience isn't going to learn or take any lessons in quotes away if they're think they're being taught a lesson. If they come away with a smile and you're smiling with them and bringing them on the journey with you. I mean, that's the thing with this short. You'll see the Par character is just as crazy and weird as a woman who thinks he's a past life regression therapy. He's lost and looking for hug therapy. Like that's crazy. So it's just nice that he could understand what she's going through, The other thing that's, I think, interesting to note in the context of all this, I think, being a person of color, being brown, diversity in comedy and diversity in the film industry with these lessons is insanely important, but not just diversity of race. I think diversity of style and genre and diversity of ideas is important. So you can tell my same story in a very finger-wagging, almost straight narrative way. But it's okay for us brown people to make things Monty Python-esque or absurdist or silly or dark or David Lynchian or something like that. We're allowed to do that too. And that's kind of what I'm hoping to get out to my fellow brothers and sisters in that crowd. And also the gatekeepers who say, if you're a brown filmmaker, you have to make it like this. Or it's a brown version of Friends. And you're like, no, let's do weird stuff too. We can. And that's what I love about this short and kind of what that world allows us to do. Not having him speak, let's take some risks as well,
Plus, that's so cool from an acting standpoint. To be able to do that.
It was fun.
So fascinating.
I have to thank my co-director who directed my performances beautifully too, Rebecca Feldman. She really, the whole crew. I had the best crew of all time. But I worried because it was my first time kind of acting in this kind of capacity. And I said, well, and I'm used to looking at a monitor when I direct, and I'm not Orson Welles. I don't know how he pulled it off. Who was telling him whether they got the take or not? So I go, I don't know if I'm being expressive or my eyes are doing the right thing. And she crushed it and helped kind of shape that with me. So it's a collaborative art. It's a collaborative medium. I might have done a lot of things on it, written it, directed it, edited it, done the songs, but there's no way I could have done it without my amazing crew,
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Thank you so much for chatting with me and sharing a little bit of your story so I can share it with the other people in my audience.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it. You're a wonderful conversationalist.
Good. I'm so glad.
In this upcoming interview, I spoke with Zach Lamplugh and Brian Emond about their feature film, The Vice Guide to Bigfoot. I had moderated the Q&A for their premiere the night before, and so we continued the conversation about the Atlanta comedy scene and about what it takes to put together a full-length comedy movie like theirs. Go watch the second screening of The Vice Guide to Bigfoot on Tuesday, October 29th at 9:15 p.m. at the Galaxy Highland Movie Theater.
Yeah, we're in Atlanta. It's good. We like it. It's the reason I moved there. I moved there for the film and the comedy scene. I was living in New Orleans before. Oh. And I just, there was so much film work. I think I worked 3 days out of the whole year I lived in New Orleans. I worked 6 months in Atlanta. Huh. I kept coming up and just being I would just get emails that were can you come up here for 3 weeks? And then I'd be okay. And then I would just be there. And then while I was doing that, I started doing comedy. Or I was doing comedy in New Orleans and just saw so many more comics in Atlanta and so many more shows. Yeah. But and then
wow, calling you every day.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was right at for the film stuff. It was right at the tail end of I think it was a year later their governor just cut all their tax incentives. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it was right. They started offering less and less incentives, and Hollywood was going to Atlanta.
Yeah, I've heard a bunch of actors moving from LA to Atlanta. Like a couple of my uncle is an actor in his like 60s, and a bunch of his friends are all moving down there to do television shows and stuff. And I was like, heck yeah.
Yeah, especially once you're on like a show or anything like that. I mean, like Margaret Cho, for example, was on a show that was shooting in Peachtree City, and she was basically living there for like 4 years because like they were there so often. She had an apartment that was like near a comedy club, so it's like I think they still probably have like a foot in LA or something just for like relationships.
Yeah.
But like
certainly, I think an agent at least
yeah.
for sure, because I think it's all still run from there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's your main comedy hub in Atlanta? What's the like theater you hang out at the most, or like shows you do?
Yeah, we ran we somebody else is running the show now.
Ladies' night.
Yeah, you know, it feels weird, I guess, to other people, but like it's such a stand-up comedy thing to like if you move or something to just be like, someone else take it over, keep running this space at the hotel bar or whatever the hell. And so we kind of wanted to stop doing it so we could like make this movie and actually focus on that. And so we gave it off to 3 other people, and they're still running it. So there's still a monthly film screening in Atlanta where people like test out new comedy shorts, and there's like 8 shorts a month or something that get shown usually.
Awesome.
Yeah, and it's at the Village Theater. They're really cool.
It puts a necessary deadline for creatives.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's like really good because like prior to that, we had submit sketches. There was a yearly competition in Atlanta, and that was like cool to enter. But like once that's over, you're like, well, I don't. Releasing on YouTube can feel like nothing. You're releasing into the ocean of nothingness, and releasing it like there at like a place where you're gonna have like response, so you can get feedback on how people are laughing, if they like it. Like once we realized that it's like, well, it's gonna be a long time before we do this again. We should just set up our own and just start creating this deadline for ourselves and others.
It seems wild that there wasn't other opportunities for that. I mean, I've heard of lots of good improv theaters. I guess in my mind, I assumed there was also sketch that they were producing and putting out, or maybe that's more insular. You know, it's great that you guys created that. I just thought, wow, I imagined it would be there for you guys.
It's video sketch is like a whole different animal, and especially because it takes so much time to like produce and everything. I mean, everybody just wants to do live sketch because you get the immediate gratification. Mm-hmm. There's not like 2 days of staying up editing it. You know what I mean? So with video, and also you need to have more like money for equipment. You need to have more like days to shoot, organize things, and all this stuff. So
if you want to find a really good editor, chances are they're hired right now working, so like it's that kind of thing.
Yeah, but we started running like basically a space where people could just premiere stuff and like build chops and everything. And a lot of people that were in that, like 8 of them work at Turner now. Good. Like they all kind of graduated to be like editors for TV, myself included. And then like a couple of them have gone on to like make movies and stuff. It's fun.
Yeah. It sounds like you guys gave people a good opportunity to put their stuff out there and also feel like
that's what
they're
I tell
accomplishing them. Something. You know what I mean? Like, like because you know it's not every day. Clearly, there's not a lot of like opportunity for that, and the fact that you gave it to them is really awesome that they were able to put it up. I mean, you're right. How many times do you put something on YouTube and it feels like, well, there it goes.
Yeah, 1,000 views. What does that even mean?
Yeah.
Like,
even if something else happens, it's like, but I did all this work.
Yeah.
Like, it's great that they watched it. I'm super happy that you watched it. But, you know, like I'm so glad even that the work you put into this movie, you got this audience, you're going to have more audiences, people get to see it in a larger scale and get to have that awesome film experience where we're all in the room. Like, I watched it beforehand to prepare, but then in the room, it was so fun to hear what they're laughing at and the spots where, like, and sometimes I'd be anticipating, I'd be like, don't pre-laugh. Like, you'll ruin the whole joke if you pre-laugh. But, like, I would love it. I would hear them all. So that, and the experience that you gave those people to be able to, because editing is sometimes even after an audience. So they got to learn that. They honed their skills. They're getting jobs.
Yeah,
you should get a commission is what I'm saying.
Exactly. I tell them every day they should be grateful. to know me. No,
10% of their salaries at Turner.
Something really psycho that I used to do, I guess, is I would record like all the shows too. I had a microphone that I would aim at the audience and record everything, and then I would send it to all the filmmakers too, and be like, "Here's like the 5-minute chunk of your film, so you can see where all the like laughs were too." And I would do it for myself, and only like twice, I think, did I have a short play that was, because I learned from these pitfalls from doing this, but like I had a short that was like 5 minutes long and kind of a mess, and it kind of felt like, okay, are these 2 jokes? What's going on? Are we making fun of 3 things? And then I watched it back with the laugh track, and I was like, oh, so there's like 3 ideas. They're only laughing at 2. Cut out the 3rd thing, and now it's a 3.5-minute short, and it's going to get laughs all the way through. And it's like more people like look at it and go, oh, I get it. Like I see it's a spoof on this instead of like a bunch of shit. It was kind of that particular one I'm thinking of was kind of a mess. It just had like 3 jokes going on, and it should have been like 1 or 2.
Sure, I heard
that.
Yeah.
So.
I've written my fair share of like, I'm not really sure what the joke is here, but we've got a camera and today we're filming.
Yeah.
So I understand.
You spend a long time writing it, or you're just looking at it over and over again, and you're like, I think there was a joke in here somewhere. I think this is funny to begin with.
Guys, I'm funny.
I heard about that from Steve Pink, the Hot Tub Time Machine director. He
right.
does that. He like records his like premieres and focus screenings and stuff like that. Yeah,
dude, that's nice. That's not only is that like good for you, but it's also like an excellent practice and like puts you in the point of view of really providing the audience what they're hoping to get, and that's at the end of the day kind of the point. So I'm. And plus, it's an excellent skill for other people to be doing. Are you? Did you listen to Did you record last night?
I did record last night, but I did. Yeah. But I didn't like listen back.
No, I mean, it just has no time, but
yeah.
We
go
cut
home
the
and
movie before Tuesday.
Exactly.
Like we cannot do the interviews because we are editing this movie.
We gotta get a different actor. We gotta get a different Bigfoot. We gotta get.
Yeah. No, I just recorded on my phone. I was like, I don't know if this will be useful, but I might as well just press rolling on it for if I feel like I need to figure something out.
I love that you did. That is really awesome.
Yeah.
Did you guys, have you always worked together, and are you planning on working together again? If you're not, you don't have to have a fight right here in front of me. So
yeah, right.
Awesome.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
No.
When I walk out of this room, I don't want to see Zach's face again. We both started, like, I met him doing stand-up comedy. That was sort of how we started, like, coming across each other's path. And then I know you were looking to do more sketch stuff, so was I, but like we hadn't really ever talked with anyone who was like, me too, or would even want to follow through. Like a lot of people would be like, let's meet up and talk about it. And I'm like, yeah, but do you have a camera? Like that was like I want to set it up for this weekend. And they'd be like, I'm busy. And you're like, well, I don't want to talk about a sketch idea for like a year. Like it just kills and it just kills ideas. Like just talking about them too much kills them.
Yeah.
And then we entered, like I mentioned, that yearly festival. I think it was really that you wanted to shoot a sketch and you're like, I need an office.
Yeah.
And I was like, I've got an empty office.
Yeah, he had a job at a startup that he was like, we can do it on a Saturday. No one goes in there. And so we got, so we used his little fob to get into an office and shoot some stuff. Yeah.
And the rest is history, I guess. Is what you
yeah, the rest is some real small time history no one's going to write about.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Plus, to a certain extent, the idea that, people will say, oh, how do I even meet somebody to work with? I can't find anyone. How about you help somebody when they need something?
That's good.
You clearly were like, oh, hey, you need that? Great, I have this. And then it was like, and then they made a movie together and it went to Austin Film Festival. You also could do that. Like that, the idea behind the podcast that I do is a lot about sketch and improv students trying to get it done. Sometimes they graduate a program and they're like, so what do I do now? I'm like, everything.
Next.
What do you want to do?
Go.
And so I started interviewing people to show them different possible paths. And so I like the idea. I know it's silly, but really, if you're like, oh, I can help you with this, you two could totally connect, and then you've got a team. And also, I've definitely definitely been in a world where people don't want to make it happen.
Yeah.
So if you can collect the small handful of people who actually want to accomplish stuff,
Right.
Yeah.
then there you go. You can really get a solid production company going.
Yeah, and running that show like really helped. Like I was saying last night, it like kind of would break people's aspirations sometimes. Because okay, so here was the rule with it, right? Was we did it every month, like.
We were the hosts.
Yeah, we
so
were the
always
hosts
aired
of
our
the show,
stuff.
so we did stuff every month, and then the other filmmakers had to submit, and it was free to submit. We didn't like charge anybody, and then whoever the audience voted was the winner of their submission block, they had to keep coming back until they lost with new content.
Oh, nice.
So they had to keep returning. And so you would see people win for like 4 months. And like the first month, it would be like, it's got like 5 locations. And then like the third month, they're like, it doesn't even have sound. Like they're like, dude, I can't keep doing this.
It's just
man.
a slideshow.
Yeah, so it would get people thinking, because the first one, obviously, they would be like, I'm really amped to do it. I'm going to take like 2 months to plan it. And then like the third one, they like had 2 weeks, you know what I mean?
When you tell them that you win and you're like, so take a day off and start writing that next one.
Yeah, so it would get people faster at like idea generation and generating ideas that could be done in the next 2 weeks to 3 weeks. And then like just turning around a project quickly. And some people really grew out of it, and then some people kind of stopped wanting to do shorts, or like some people you could tell we did it twice in 3 years, you know what I mean, or something like that. And
but then a lot of those people also like diverted quickly off to what they wanted to.
Yeah,
like a lot. It's like, oh, now you're editing full time at Turner. Cool.
Yeah.
Like that. Like
when you learn that skill, the hard times can be good.
Yeah.
The hard times of like, how do I get this done? Oh my god! But then you learn how to get it done.
Yeah.
Oh my god! And when you have a job to do, they're not going to be like, you have a week. They'll be like, tomorrow we need this 40-minute thing. And you're like, I'm sorry, what? So that's a real life thing.
Yeah.
Get ready for a job. You want money for it? Lots of fast turnaround. So. We need to wrap up. I wanted to just ask you guys if you had any advice for sketch comedians out there, or improv comedians, or stand-up comedians. How do you get together to make it happen, to get a film into
like
a festival?
Film or okay.
Make it, get it out. I mean, it's a 1 minute to give me great advice. But.
Yeah, well...
Find someone who is also as angry at the world as yourself, and then just bond with them over that. And be like, I am saying angry at find someone with a similar perspective as yourself, because I think that's where you're going to start like forming a conversation, and maybe your ideas are going to start to line up. And then with that person, realize that life is short, and be like, I just want to make it. I just want to make it. I want to make it right now, and find an audience that you can measure it off of. Maybe see if there's a comedy show in town. Comedy shows in different towns are really willing to let a sketch show.
Yeah.
They're not going to be like, no, you can, they love it.
Yeah,
you can find that feedback.
I would play it, because I wouldn't, because, you know, running that, we had like home field advantage. Like people would come out and be like, okay, we know their work, so we're going to like check it out and everything. But I would routinely take our sketches to other places that would screen things. Like there was to places, because you should do that, like to places, like there was one that was like kind of pretty Christian-y. Like I would bring other filmmakers there, and they'd be like, I don't like how this is so Christian. And I'm like, whatever, man. Like, because
yeah, exactly.
And also, like, all these Hollywood people are like, we want to appeal to middle America. Well, this is a room full of that. You know what I mean? You can't be too dirty for these people.
Yeah.
They have to laugh at it. And then there was like one that was like in a bar, and there'd be like kind of people talking, and I was like, just play it here. Like, we'll see if what we're doing is powerful enough to make people like look at it.
Yeah.
Because it may not be. You know what I mean? And you'll figure it out.
Absolutely. That's a great
yeah,
advice.
play different places, you know.
Find feedback.
Well, thank you guys so much for chatting with me and sharing information with my audience, and I hope you have a wonderful day of chatting about your great movie.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Next up, I talked to ELENA WEINBERG of Turtle Dove Films. ELENA and her husband Duncan Coe made the feature film A Room Full of Nothing. The movie premiered on Saturday night at the Austin Film Festival, and I had the opportunity to host their Q&A. ELENA and I sat down before the premiere to talk about learning Shakespeare, about creating project challenges for yourself to improve your skills, and about finding your tribe. You still have a chance to see A Room Full of Nothing on Wednesday, October 30th at 1:45 p.m. at the Hideout Theater. And hey, here's an extra tidbit, an Austin improv scavenger hunt. One of our fine comedy institutions is a location in this movie. Tweet me at YBY Podcast when you figure it out.
So I started acting technically when I was 3. I have like home videos of specifically doing Snow White over and over again, where like I would play Snow White and like my mom would record and then my dad would play all the other characters, and then like we would immediately switch and like my dad would record, my mom would play Snow White, and I would play all the other characters. And I'm not sure why it was Snow White, like maybe I had just seen it or something. I was 3, so I have seen the videos, but I don't remember.
I love the idea that at 3 you like played all the different characters.
Yeah,
that's
and,
so
like,
fun.
My parents are literally like, you have been acting and directing since you were 3. Like, I would bring them in the living room and I'd be like, okay, now you say this and you say this because I'm Snow White this time, so you're the dwarves, and like you have to come in here, and like it was in my blood.
I can't even believe it. I was like, you're telling a story, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh no, my child is an actor. Because he watches the Bee Movie, you know, the Jerry Seinfeld thing, and when they get to the court scene, he's the judge. He'll be like, no, oh no. And I'm like, you are so funny. Like, and when somebody gets sad, he'll go, on screen, and I'm like, amazing. Oh my God, how is he so connected to that? I mean, you must have been too if you were playing all these roles.
I was, and like, so that was like my very first memory, well, my very first story, I guess, of doing that. My mom also told me recently that she found, I think, like my baby book, or like toddler book, I guess.
Yeah.
But they took me to go see Cinderella on stage, I think in San Antonio maybe, somewhere close to here. And she wrote in that book, like Elena I didn't think she would sit through it because she's so small, but she was so captivated. Literally wrote, I wonder if she's going to be a director. So it's like, yeah, it's always been there.
I like that they were so open to it. Yeah. They're like, this seems right.
Yeah.
Let's.
So my mom's an artist.
Awesome.
She's now mostly makes like collages and assemblages. But was an elementary art teacher for years. And then my dad was also an educator, but is now retired and a full-time musician. So they were like,
yeah,
we are artists. We can't tell you not to be an artist.
Yeah, you know? They totally are. Yeah. Wow, I love it.
Yeah.
So when we first started chatting, I said to you that I recognized you from a production company in Austin. Have you always lived in Austin and done theater and stuff here?
Sort of. So I grew up in San Marcos.
Oh, okay.
So basically, yes. I was born here. So when I was still living here, I was like, I'm a unicorn. I was born in Austin. I know there's not a lot of us. Yep. But technically, I grew up in San Marcos. I did theater in San Marcos through 10th grade. And then when I was in high school, I did a summer Shakespeare program in Wimberley that I was just like enamored with. And I was so, at that program, not only were we all cast in the shows, we did 2 full-length Shakespeare shows every summer. We were all cast in them, some mostly the boys, because we're hurting for boys at that age.
Sure.
In theater, we're in both shows. Like, they'd have a leading role in one and a minor role in the other. And we were making all the sets and all the costumes ourselves. So we spent 12 hours a day in Wimberley, Texas in July, producing Shakespeare as 15-year-olds.
I love it.
And I was so obsessed with it that I convinced my parents to let me transfer to Wimberley High.
Wow.
So that I could be in the Wimberley High theater program.
Did the person who ran the Shakespeare program run the high school theater?
So they founded the Shakespeare. Gary Wyatt, who has since passed, and his wife Lydia were the theater and speech teacher at Wimberley High, and they started the Shakespeare program. By the time I got there, they had moved on and were just doing the high school stuff, but they laid the framework, and all the Wimberley High kids were the kids who did the summer Shakespeare program. And I liked working with them so much that I was like, now I have to meet the Wyatts. I have to go work with them.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an intense move at 15 to switch schools.
I'm a Leo, man. I know what I want, and I'm going to get it.
That's great. No, the determination of that is wonderful, because I definitely talk to a lot of people who are, held back and they don't know, should I make this move? So the idea that you were like, I want to do it, I did it. Yes.
Yeah.
That you're going to get a lot done with that.
Totally.
For sure. I mean, as it is, you ran film production companies, made multiple films, and have them in festivals. So you're already clearly determined to get stuff done.
Well, a lot of the advice that because I've been coming to Austin Film Fest for like 10 years now, and other festivals as well. And the advice that literally everyone gives at these panels, or even just networking and stuff like that, is like, you just keep going. Like, don't give up, because like talent is good, and like it's good that you have it, but like plenty of people don't make it because they just stop doing it. But if you just keep showing up, eventually someone is going to say, oh, you're still here? Okay, you can make this thing.
I know. Can I just legitimately tell you, like, that's how I feel about getting invited to do my podcast at the festival?
Yes.
I was like, yeah, just keep doing it, and then they're going to notice.
Yeah.
Like, it's great. Yeah, if you just keep putting stuff out there, no matter what, even if it's screaming into the void at first.
Yeah, totally.
Like, eventually someone will be like, what's this stuff? It's interesting.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, and even if it takes a long time, then they go and look at you and they're like, wow, look at this breadth of stuff I can now enjoy.
Right.
I mean, how much do you love when you like find somebody new and then all of a sudden you're like, ooh, there's 2 web series I can watch?
Yes. When I first discovered Joe Swanberg, I was like, oh my God, because he's such like a micro budget producer, director, writer guy, like very inspirational, like him and the Duplass brothers and that kind of like era of like mumblecore, indie, do-it-yourself filmmakers was really inspiring when Duncan and I first started making film. I mean, they're still inspiring, but that like, we discovered them probably later than other people did, because we kind of started doing film later. We were both very focused on theater and then kind of switched to film after college. But I remember like seeing Drinking Buddies in the theater and being like, what is this? It was while I was doing improv at the institution, found out it was an improvised movie, and was like, how did they improvise that? It was so clean and professional. And I was like Googling Joe Swanberg, and I was like, this dude just like put all of his movies on his website. Like, I watched his very first short film that was like him and his friends skateboarding around his like yard or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, like Joe freaking Swanberg has his movies up on his website? Yes.
Yeah.
It's
absolutely.
so cool.
It's great. Heck, man, until people give you millions for them, put them out. Why not?
Right. And what's so cool about him, too, which is something that Duncan and I hope to continue to do, is he likes making tiny movies with people that he loves that mean a lot to him. And so, like, he spoke at South by a couple of years ago and talked a lot about that. That was just like, yeah, I wanted to make Happy Christmas, so instead of like going to a studio and having to jump through all these hoops, I just like am friends with Anna Kendrick and was like, hey, while you're like doing Pitch Perfect or whatever the big movie she was doing at the time, like if you want to do like a small indie thing that like you can just like improvise through and like be yourself and like have artistic license on and like collaborate, like, let's do it. And they shot it like in his living room for almost no money. And it was like after he made a movie with Olivia Wilde and Jake Johnson, but he still wanted to do, though, I mean, not that Anna Kendrick is nobody, like she's huge too, you know.
Because they were friends.
But they were, and he's like, yeah, let's just keep making these tiny things that mean a lot to us.
Yeah, absolutely. So. I think the heart of the director comes through for sure when you're watching something.
Totally.
So for you, you've spent quite a bit of time recently putting your movie together and, you know, getting it in festivals and stuff. Tell me how that feels for you. You know, clearly a lot of heart and soul put into it for yourself. How does the journey feel and where you are now?
I'm still kind of in the scared phase, just because this is before this, we made 12 short films, 2 seasons of a web series, and this is our first feature film.
You're not busy at all.
So, you know. This is the first time we have dealt with, like, okay, let's actually try to distribute this. And, like, before it was like, this is all of our DIY stuff that we like made for the internet that we're putting out for free so that when we make the big project, people have like stuff that they can watch of ours.
Absolutely.
Like, hey, we made this web series on a DSLR and $5,000. Now we're making this feature for still pennies, but more than that, you know, and then like see our growth through those things. And like, who wants to give me $1 million, which is no money to people in Hollywood, but I could do so much with that, So
yeah, you're moving up the rungs of like, we did it for $10, we did it for $100,
exactly.
It's like, absolutely.
Look what I did for a penny. Imagine what I could do with $1.
Yeah.
So we're kind of navigating that right now, and it's scary because it's real, and I'm like, people are going to pay to see.
Yeah.
Okay, let's make sure that's good.
I love that you're worried about your quality. It's funny, based on the work that I've seen of yours, I would never worry about the quality.
Thank you so much.
You guys work so hard, and the effort is clearly shown. Like,
good to hear.
That part, don't even worry. I'm just like worried for you because of business stuff.
Yeah,
I'm like, what's that like? Who are you talking to? Is it weird?
I mean, it is weird. What's nice about Duncan and I's partnership is that we're both creative people, but he is like the typical writer, and I am like the typical actress producer. When he and I wasn't even in this one, but anyway, I was for like a second, but when he retreats back into his hole and is like, I don't want to talk to anybody, I just want to write this script. I'm like, great, now is my time. I'm going to go talk to everyone about it. And it's going to be really fun. To answer your question, it feels good. It feels a little scary. I'm really excited, but that's my personality. And Duncan and Ivy, our lead actress, are both very nervous in this moment because we premiered today.
Sure, yes.
And so both of them are like, oh my God, I'm going to throw up during the screening. I'm so scared. And I'm like, y'all, I'm excited. I'll be excited for all of us. I guess that's my job, my role right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it can be nerve-wracking. It's funny because, again, I would not even worry about what the audience is going to react. I'm just fascinated in the sort of the business part.
Mm-hmm.
That part would scare me, where it's we now have to talk to people about this thing.
Right.
And now, would this film be the first film that you would potentially distribute in a larger sense?
Yes.
Well, what a great journey that will be, too.
Yeah. Duncan and I grew up doing theater, and after college decided to start making films. We went to theater school. We both have degrees in acting. He has a minor in writing. I now say a lot I wish I had just gotten a business degree, but whatever. But we taught ourselves how to make films and are doing fine at it. So in tandem, we are also teaching ourselves how to run a business. So those are just two DIY things that we're doing and figuring it out along the way. And we figured everything that we've done out so far. So I'm not worried about it, but I know it's going to happen.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Can do it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Even with my parenting, I think much dumber people have done this. This is fine.
I can do this.
So many people that I've seen where I'm like, that person has multiple children,
and they're all alive.
Yeah, right. You're like, oh, they seem fine and well adjusted. I'm good.
Yeah, I got this.
Yeah, I know it's not great to be all like, people are terrible. I'm fine, but there's a lot of people that have made a lot of terrible movies and put them out there. So I'm sure that your actual quality movie will be.
Never went away. That's what I'm saying.
Exactly.
They just kept going, so I can do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, man. So for any people that might be starting their journey of filmmaking, getting to this point, getting to a festival, do you have any advice for people about what to do? We've talked a lot about staying in the game, but if you're just starting, what do you think they need to do or learn or focus on that maybe will help them stay in the game longer or at least enjoy staying in the game?
Two things. One, find a group of people that are your tribe. That's such a buzzword, tribe. But seriously, find your tribe. Find the 3 other people who are cool spending their weekends shooting free movies on your iPhone, and do it. And don't wait for things to be perfect. That's something that I pushed Duncan on a lot. I wrote our web series with a group of girls, but other than that, he's the primary writer in our duo. And he produced nothing for so long. I didn't even read the stuff he was writing for so long because he's such a perfectionist that he didn't want to show it to anyone or make anything until it was exactly what he wanted it to be. And then when we started making films, we did it through what we're now calling the 12-month project. We made 1 short film a month for an entire year.
Yes.
Each month we taught ourselves something we hadn't done before. So the first month we made a music video, so we just got like a Rebel T3i and shot it and didn't have to worry about sound. Like the second month we built like a PVC pipe dolly, and like we're like, you can do different shots than just on a tripod. And then the third month we added voiceover. The fourth month we finally added on-set dialogue, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, hey, Duncan, you're going to write 12 scripts this year, and like they might be bad, but I'm going to make them anyway, so give me something next week. And I think that really started like the forward motion of just like keep going, and like don't be precious about your work. Like at some point when you're making art, the art becomes the audience's art and it's not yours anymore, and people are like gonna have opinions of it anyway, so just like let them.
Yeah.
And their opinion is probably not gonna be your opinion. Oh well, you know? So
yeah, I was just talking to somebody about how most art is like just a mirror to the other person, to themselves, and they see themselves in it. So like if they react a way that you don't expect, it's just because whatever you said meant something in their life
triggered
that
a prejudice in them or
anything.
whatever.
They,
or joy,
you want them to laugh and they cry, and you're like, what's going on? It's like, well, it's just their thing. You know, like let them react however they need to react. The whole group, in the larger sense, when it's like you watch a whole room, it's like you can feel the vibe. But individually, it's like, no, let people be. I love crying through a movie I'm not supposed to cry through when I like feel the emotions really deeply. Yeah.
I love crying in movies.
It's
I
great.
love laughing too, but
yeah, it's wonderful to. When I cry, it is for like the emotion because I'm deeply embedded in the story as it's going. But then there's also the second part of me that is just like so excited that it's been made.
Yes.
That this person is acting this in front of me, and I get to feel this. And then there's that underlying joy of like, hey lady, you did it. You made me cry. I love this.
Yeah.
Like it's so great.
Like another thing that everyone says at film festivals that is so true, but is like also kind of annoying is like, but you made it. Like you made something. Like isn't just the goal that you made a movie and like you actually did it? Like nobody actually makes a feature film. Like no one ever actually finishes it. Like the people who finish it, that's the point, right? And I'm like, yeah, obviously that's the point, but it's also like, if I don't sell this movie, I'm not going to make another one. So like, don't tell me it's just about making the movie, you know? But
yeah, absolutely.
I feel like I hear that at every festival, everywhere. But you made it. That was the point, right?
Well, I think that's funny, too, from your point of view of having determination already, that you were like, I already knew that I was going to make it, so you, like, applauding me is essentially like you take 2 steps and you're like, I'm an adult woman, I can walk. Like, you don't have to clap for me.
Right.
And be like, great job! Like, I got it. But yeah, I mean, the people that are submitting and getting into the festivals have already gone past that hurdle. Those people are saying it for the people in the panels who have not written anything yet, who are like, but wait.
Those questions are important for people who haven't made it yet, made the thing yet.
Sure,
you know?
absolutely.
And like, if it really,
they need to understand what that means.
Yeah, if you really need to hear me say your iPhone shoots in 4K, then I'll say it. You know, like,
or like all you have to do is take 2 weeks off from work to make a movie.
Right. Or don't take time off work, do it on the weekends with your friends and shoot a movie in 8 weekends instead of 10 straight days, and don't pay anyone because you all have your day jobs and you're collaborating together, and the people that you bring in to do it like that probably care as much about your project as you do, and they're not just there for a paycheck.
Yeah.
So, sure, do it how you can do it.
Absolutely.
You know?
Just do it. So final question to wrap it up.
Yes.
If tonight when we do the moderating of the Q&A about this movie that you've worked on, what's the thing about the movie that you hope people notice and that you really want to resonate with people? And we'll see tonight.
I want to see if people, this is kind of a cop-out answer, maybe. I want to see if people need the ending explained.
Good.
And like not because it's like hard to get, but because we purposely made it kind of open-ended because we want people to keep thinking about it after they leave the theater.
Yeah.
And watch it again and see if they see like clues the whole time.
Yeah.
We did a Q&A at our first screening in Beverly Hills earlier this year, and a guy in the Q&A like basically asked us to explain the ending like in our Q&A, and we were like, No, the point is that it's up to you.
Yeah.
What happens next? Like that. I'm not going to tell you what it means because the point is, what does it mean to you?
Man, I bet you that's the first question we get. That's going to be so fun. We're going to laugh and laugh and be like, all right, let's talk about what you need to do as an audience member.
Yeah.
Awesome. Good. Well, thank you so much for taking the time and chatting with me. And I'm so excited to be with you tonight. Yes. And I'll make Duncan and Ivy feel better, I promise.
Perfect.
And we'll have a great time.
Yay.
So awesome. Thank you, Elena.
God. Thank you so much.
Our final interview is with podcaster MARISSA Tandon. An Austin Film Festival success story, MARISSA entered a podcast script competition in 2017 and has since been producing and writing her own audio fiction podcast, Super Ordinary. MARISSA is a great inspiration to me, as I have recently been very interested in writing an audio fiction podcast. She taught me a lot in this discussion. Listen in as we talk about developing new shows in her writer's room, casting from the LA comedy scene, and scratching the itch of creativity. Support MARISSA by listening to her podcast Super Ordinary on tandonproductions.com.
I actually got into podcasting because of the Austin Film Festival. Yeah, right. I'm a fun success story. They like to throw it around.
That's great.
Yeah. So I started 2 years ago at the Austin Film Festival 2017. I had just graduated college and was submitting. I went to school for screenwriting, so I was submitting to festivals and doing the whole round. And then that was the first year they did the fiction podcast script competition. So they had a marketing email that went out that was you should also submit for the fiction podcast script. And I was like, what is a fiction podcast? I have never heard of that. And they're like, it's like a scripted podcast that you do. You script it. And I was like, you mean you want me to write down an interview and then people will read it? And so then I did some research and understood kind of what it is. And I adapted something I had already written for audio and kind of tried to understand how audio storytelling works versus visual storytelling or novel storytelling, prose, I guess. And I adapted my script and submitted it, and then I actually moved forward in the competition. So I came here 2 years ago and met a ton of people that were making huge shows, and it took me maybe almost another year to totally commit and go forward with doing my show. So I came back last year again for the feature scripts competition side of things and had my podcast out at that point, and now I am here as a panelist.
Wow. Yeah. Do they tout you the way you're saying? They're like, she's our success story. She really did it.
I don't know that they are.
They didn't introduce you that way?
It's come up every time I've talked, of course. Because the question is how do you get into podcasting? And then you're like, well,
yeah.
That's my story. So it's always. I mean, I think it's great. I love the festival because of that. I think I've seen my career change completely in 2 years just from what they're doing with audio. So
now, do you think it's because they gave you great tips on your writing, or did you make connections, or both?
Both, for sure, both. The programming here is so helpful. The panels were so helpful of I think podcasting is a little bit different than filmmaking, right? Because filmmaking, you have to find people who want to fund your work and put it on the big screen or television or whatever. And podcasting is so much more on the indie side of things of no, you want to make it, so go out and make it. So a lot of the panels are a lot about this is how you actually go about doing that. This is how you write for audio. This is how you find a sound designer. This is how you do these things. So there was a lot of that. And then I also made a lot of great connections a lot this year as well.
Oh, okay. Now, you said you did both the podcast script contest and the feature writing contest. Are the notes that they're giving you for the audio drama drastically different?
No, they're still kind of about, content and character and plot and those kinds of things. This could be strengthened, this could be, this is perfect, keep this this way.
Basic storytelling is still sort of the essence.
Exactly, storytelling's still storytelling, right?
Right.
It's just, there might be a note in a feature about, this was not visually interesting enough. You might have a script, a note in your audio that's this wouldn't translate in audio very well, but...
okay, yeah, there you go.
Other than that, yeah, I think they're pretty similar. I think telling a story, you're still telling a story, right? So your notes are going to be about your storytelling ability.
Yeah. When you did the panel while you were here now, do you find, like, do you learn a lot more when you get to teach the other people? You know, when people are asking you questions, you have to describe how to do X, Y, or Z.
Right.
Do you find, like, you're learning stuff?
Yeah, that's so interesting to put it that way. I think maybe I found a lot more answers of like things that we have learned along the way, because we've been going so fast for so long, that you're like, oh, it's always been this way, and then you're like, well, no, like the first time we did it, it was a mess, and then you've learned. So like, I think I've definitely been able to go back and say like, these are the mistakes that we've made as I try to answer questions to move and say like, this is where we've gotten to. But it's also one of those things where you're constantly like, it's not just because I do it this way doesn't mean it's the right way to do it. I think
that's open of you.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think especially in a medium like this, like it's always changing, and it's not brand new. It's been around forever, but it's getting a new kind of life right now.
Yeah.
So like, you can do whatever you want. Like, someone might come and figure out how to make interpretive like movement a podcast. I don't know how they would do it, but someone could, and my process wouldn't be great for that.
Yeah, maybe
you know?
not.
Yeah.
I mean, there's got to be ASMR podcasts, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what are they doing? Chewing popcorn?
Yeah, exactly.
Great.
Yeah, so that's
Like,
amazing. You're
that's
doing
their thing.
amazing. Yeah.
Not what I would do, but I'm glad you're doing it.
Exactly. Yeah. So.
Well, the interesting thing I find that people say a lot about podcasting, because I've also gone to podcast festivals, is they'll say, make what you want to listen to.
Absolutely.
And so what are your, like, do you have favorite audio podcasts that you listen to that help inspire you? Or even that are so different that they don't, but they got you into the idea?
I would say one of the shows that I listened to that helped kind of crystallize audio as a concept to me that made the most sense, and I think is a great kind of like gateway drug almost for audio.
Tell me that gateway
fiction.
drug.
For audio fiction specifically, I think Deck the Halls with Matrimony. It's by Ashley Quatch and Sasquatch Radio.
Deck the Halls what?
With Matrimony.
Matrimony.
It's a Christmas rom-com. And it's like it's like watching a movie, but there's no like narrator, there's no anything in it. It really just plays like a movie, and I remember like I listened to it on an airplane, and I was like crying at all the points you would cry in a rom-com, and like laughing out loud and all those things. And I was like, oh my god, like I care so much about this, and I can't even see how hot these people are. Like they're just doing things, and like the writing is so good, and the acting is so good, and so it's so easy. I think because it's I think there are a lot of really cool things happening in the audio fiction space, but some shows take a little bit more to learn how to listen to audio, whereas this show was just like I felt like I didn't have to learn anything. I just felt like I was consuming a piece of media. So I find I try to like emulate that same approach where it doesn't feel like there's any sort of learning curve on it in my work. And Ashley's a really good friend of mine now, so it's been so fun. I'm like, do you like this? Please. But yeah, I think that one's so good. And then I listen to mostly like before I started doing audio fiction, I listened to mostly like comedian podcasts. So it was so much about like feeling like you have two pals in the morning to take you to work, like making you laugh. So I think
like
that was
ones
big.
where they're doing comedy in the podcast, because like they have improv ones where they like do improv, which I think is wild.
There's a great one called Mission to Zizix that does that. That's like improv, but then they sound design it after. So that's really cool. But no, I listen to more like
the interviews?
comedians, like interviewing comedians.
Yeah.
Like those are my favorite things in the world.
Well, that's funny. That's on my podcast.
There you go.
Yeah.
So I thought we would make it
So great. So you like my thing. I love your thing. Tell me about your show and the journey to develop it, because you're talking about how it took you a while to kind of learn to get it right. Do you feel like you've gotten it? Where are you at? Tell me more about it.
I think I think any like writer or creator is always going to be like, we could always do better, right? Like no one's ever happy with their work.
Sure.
So I think we definitely could continue getting better, and I hope we continue getting better every time we do something. But since we started, we have 3 seasons of Super Ordinary, which is our first show, which is about a girl who finds out she has superpowers, but they're connected to her panic attacks, so she can't control them. So she's sort of the villain in her world. So that's been really cool. And the evolution of that show, I think we found a lot of different things about like how we wanted to play with perspective and how long our episodes were. We've moved from Season 1 and Season 2 were closer to 15 minutes, which made sense for that part of the story. Now Season 3 is closer to 25 minutes per episode, which makes sense for what we're doing right now. And then we have another show called All in My Head, which I don't write, but we produce. And that was an exploration, I think, in sound design so much, because that's a horror show. So that was so much about, like, the visceral experience of being frightened. And in audio, that can be really, really intense, because it's coming out of your own imagination, and I think whatever you imagine is going to be scarier than what we would have put on screen to some degree. And then we have a show called The Sword and the Stoner, which is just straight comedy. It's
King Arthur and is a stoner?
It's King Arthur, exactly. See, there you go. You knew from the title. King Arthur is a stoner. And plays with that. So it's a modern day adaptation of that. And that's, that was so much about, like, how do we do comedy and physical comedy and audio. So I think everything's been, it's been such a different experience all the way through.
Man.
But yeah, I think we've learned a lot doing that. And we've been around for a little over a year now as a company.
What's the name of the company?
Tandon Productions.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is,
And you say we. Tell me about your team. Like, how'd you find your team? I find that's the hardest part sometimes.
It is. I got really lucky. My dad is my business partner. So he is a brilliant, brilliant businessman. So he does a lot of the business side of things, and I get to do a lot of the kind of creative oversight of things and kind of deciding where we're going creatively on those kinds of things. And then my sister actually is also a writer, so she wrote All in My Head, and that's her show, so she runs that. We have new shows coming out that we have a writer's room on, so those are people that I met doing comedy, or met coming up in college with, and we've had like a lot of really talented writers through that. Our actors are either people that have come through the LA comedy scene with me, because I do stand-up and improv, or people that we found just on casting calls in LA, just backstage and LA casting and casting boards and things like that. So we've gotten really lucky with that, I think. And our sound design team, ironically, our sound designer now was one of our actors who came off of a casting call. And she was a musician and knew what she was doing and knew she wanted to, like, explore sound design. So now she's doing sound design with us.
That's cool.
Yeah, just, like, kind of, like, romantic, like, it just, like, worked out exactly the way you want it to. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So you do comedy in LA.
I do.
Was it that sort of like storytelling that got you into the idea of creating this in the first place?
Well, so I was I went to school for screenwriting. So I was working in TV and development at the time. And I think what got me into looking at audio was when I came here, I met so many people that were just doing what they wanted to do. They were just making the story they wanted to make. And I had been working in development, and I knew I didn't want a career in development. And I had been kind of meeting with people and doing all these things and submitting to contests and, like, realizing that I was just waiting for someone to decide something I wrote was good enough to be out there. And then I met all these people that were like, I know what I did was good enough, so I'm going to make it and put it out there. And we live in 2019, like, the internet exists, so you can do that.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of decided I didn't want to keep waiting for people to tell me I did something good enough to listen to. And I knew it was good, and people liked it, and so I did it. And now it's just such a different... I think it's really hard to imagine, like, not doing that anymore, I think.
Yeah, I find that... Well, also, I find that people who have the drive to do their own thing are a certain breed. And
right.
Even more of the people that I've interviewed, the idea that sort of the people that are here are the people who are determined to get it done.
Right.
The people who have put it together and made it happen, or at least submitted to something and put themselves out there.
For sure, yeah.
Like, even just that, like, that's such the first step. The fact that you were performing and submitting is, like, first step getting yourself out there. It wasn't like you were like, oh, I wrote this and it's on my laptop and no one's seen it. Like, you're putting yourself out there for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. And I think, I do think, like doing improv and stand-up was so connected to the idea of, like, instant gratification, which podcasting is so much faster gratification than, like, submitting to festivals and waiting for someone to eventually make it. Like, stand-up and improv, you tell a joke and it worked or it didn't work. Like, you got your laugh or you didn't get your laugh. And podcasting, you put it out there and people either like it or they don't. But you get to hear those answers, like, pretty instantly. Pretty cool.
Do you get a lot of reaction?
Yeah, we have a lot of like response on social media and on like our reviews and those kinds of things. So it's really cool. And then being here this year, a lot of people listen to the show, and a lot of people like come up and are like, "Oh, I really like XYZ about the show," and I'm like, "Oh, that's awesome!" Like, so yeah, no, it's cool because it's like it's everywhere. So people all over the world can listen to it and have a opinion, whether it's good or bad.
Yeah, I love the international aspect of it. It's really wild.
Yeah.
The idea of how connected we can be to people just all across the country. The world even.
Right.
Wild.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, so awesome.
Agreed.
And all these people can be making different kinds of stuff. Like the fact that we could talk. I'm sure in your panel, there are people from many different countries.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Listening to you who will bring back to their home these ideas and do stuff. And it's like, that's awesome.
Yeah, well, it's two of my friends that I made here 2 years ago live in Europe, so like I never see them, obviously, and but I get to talk to them all the time, and they're making an amazing show, and we are all kind of like doing it at the same time and doing the same thing and chatting, and that's such a just this type of industry where it's like right on the internet that you can have that experience.
Yeah, it's so nice. So I did want to talk to you about audio dramas because I'm like trying to figure out how do you get it started? Should you like try to write it like it's a movie and then adjust it, or
Interesting. Yeah.
you know, like should you always be thinking about? I mean, I guess you should always be thinking about how it's only audio, but I don't know. What's your advice?
I think there's like a lot of different ways to approach it. Everyone's writing style and writing process is different, but I can talk about kind of how I do it.
Sure.
So for me, like I was trained as a screenwriter, so I'm so used to visual screenwriting and thinking about like what does it mean if someone's room has this book on the shelf and those kinds of things. But you can't see that unless someone physically goes, "Oh, it's so interesting that you have War and Peace open and dog-eared on your bookshelf here with coffee stains in the corner. You're such a messy and intellectual person." Like, you can't, which is not good writing, obviously.
Sounds like a great improv initiation.
Right, it's so interesting. So you have to kind of figure out how to, like, tell the same story and the same character things that you would tell without being able to see someone, right? So someone can't have really distinctive freckles, or they can, but I'm not going to know that unless you tell me verbally. Or like, I really hate my freckles today. Like, okay, great. So those things I think you have to like kind of pull away from, and those might be things you would lean on visually if you were trying to write something to tell a story. But I think it's still world building, right? And you're still trying to create characters and create the world that you're in. So I think you still need a lot of the similar things that you would need as a screenwriter. You still need an establishing shot, quote unquote. I know they can't see my air quotes, but I'm making them.
You said it.
You still need like an establishing shot, right? But the establishing shot is more about what the world sounds like. It's like enough of a moment where no one's talking, but we're walking through a forest, and I know we're walking through a forest because I can hear birds and I can hear fireflies or crickets, which means it's a different time of the day. I can hear grass and things crunching under these people's feet. So now I'm like, okay, we're definitely in a forest. I can hear rain, so it's raining, and I can hear the way the rain's hitting on the concrete, so we're in a city, and I can hear cars going by, so we're somewhere busy, and I can hear two people, and then they can start doing whatever they were doing. And I know exactly where we are, and I feel like I am there. So it's a lot of the same things that you would be thinking about. You're just thinking about them audio-wise as opposed to visually.
Yeah. That's smart. I never even thought about that, but of course.
Yeah, right?
Makes perfect sense. Okay, I shouldn't get deep in my head about this. I'm like,
I'm ready.
Let's
go write something.
Write it, I'm ready to write. So you're working on your own show, and then you're supporting other people as they are writing theirs. You also mentioned a writer's room. Does that mean that you're developing new projects in the community?
Yeah, we do writer's rooms. So the two that we just finished running were shows that I wrote the pilot of, and then brought two other writers on. And those two writers wrote episodes themselves, but we did a collaborative process where we came in and we broke the season together, and we talked a lot about character and where things were going, and we worked with writers who I tried to put together a team that had a kind of different balance of strengths and weaknesses. So on our newest show, which we're in casting for right now currently, is a kind of rom-com reimagining of Hamlet. It's called His Royal Fake and Highness. So it's like modern and playing around with what it would have been like if Ophelia had a chance to be a person, wholly so, and how that would have involved her, and how the story would have changed if that were the case. And so for that, it's a rom-com. So I brought on a writer who has just like such great skill in crafting really soft romantic moments and like making your breath catch. And I brought in someone who is so good at just crazy, crazy comedy. We've done improv together for years, and she's just so funny. And so when we broke the season, we kind of decided, okay, this episode is the really big romantic pivot point, so that goes to Alex. And this episode has the most ridiculous comedic framing, so that goes to Kelly, and I'll take what's left. But kind of playing to other people's strengths and building a kind of a stronger season, I think, out of the fact that there were different viewpoints and different strengths for those writers, and then coming together and kind of pitching better jokes or pitching small changes and things like that.
Yeah. You've mentioned a couple times the people that you're working with, and it sounds like you're working with a lot of women.
Yeah.
Is it mostly women?
Yeah, I guess so. Now that I think about it, on our creative side of things, we have a female sound designer that we're working with. All of our writers on shows that have been announced are women, and I think all of our shows are run by women, all female showrunners.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that's really great, and I also think it's interesting that you didn't notice. You're like, oh,
yeah.
I guess so.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
there were the best people for the
design.
job. It wasn't like, I mean, I think everyone should pay attention to who they're hiring and why they're hiring them, but they were just the best people who applied, and so it turned out that those were the best.
Sure.
That women just happened to be the best people for the
Yeah.
job, you know?
Well, also, I'm always very interested in how people connect with their community, because I've done a lot of sketch comedy and improv, and I've had some ups and downs when it came to people committing to
Right.
being part of stuff.
Yeah.
And so I can understand but how did you get such a good group of people that are you just lucky, or is it people that you knew for a while?
Well, we've
or?
definitely had people that we've worked with and don't work with us anymore, that were good fits at the time, ended up not being, you know what I mean? I think that's inherent in anything that you're doing, or someone gets a better job, or someone moves across the country, or someone does anything, you know what I mean? So those are definitely, especially doing things like the arts, everyone's kind of doing it part-time and really cares about it, but doesn't necessarily have the ability to dedicate their whole life to that. You gotta pay rent. But yeah, I think some people were total strangers and ended up being perfect fits on, especially on our actors side. We've had some amazing actors that I would have never met if we hadn't put out a casting call. On the Sword and the Stoner, we have this actor, Sam, and he plays Merlin, and he is absolutely incredible. And we just got him through backstage. We posted a casting call and he submitted. And our lead of All in My Head was also someone that we had never met before, and she's incredible, Mia Passarella. She's so good. So yeah, some people are totally just random people, and some people are people that I have known forever. But I have a big rule about working with friends, which is that you have to go through the same application process as everyone else.
Nice.
So if you happened to be the best person that submitted, that's great, and you'll get the job. But I don't like to kind of just not see who else is out there and not give someone else an opportunity just because we're pals. And you want to make the best thing you can make. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Man, so final question to wrap up our chat.
Sure.
These are little shorties.
Yeah.
Tell me if you could give advice to somebody who, and I guess you probably did, but if you have any other advice for writers that are out there that are listening, not the people who came to the festival,
right.
but how do they get started, and what should be their first move for getting their audio drama going?
Well, I would say find the thing that you can't stop thinking about. Super Ordinary was our first show that we did, and I wrote the pilot of that. Actually, I guess the first version of that way before I was even looking at audio drama, I wrote in college. And then it just kept like pushing. I knew I like really wanted to work with it. And eventually, like, we finally got there. And even after I came to Austin, it still took me like 8 months to be like, okay, yeah, I really, really want to do this. I can't stop thinking about this as a concept. And I think it's really important that people have that kind of attachment to what you're getting ready to work on, especially for your first show, because podcasting is like running a business. Like, you know that you're doing the same thing. It is like going to take over your life. So if it's something you're not, even if you're not fully, deeply passionate about it, and like it keeps you up at night, then you're gonna eventually burn out and be upset and not finish or not have the best thing that you can have. You have to find that thing that like will drive you crazy if you don't make it.
Yeah. I actually really like, personally, when I get to connect with people.
Yeah.
Like, especially in the last couple of years, I had a baby a couple of years ago, so there was a lot of me being home at night when I was not used to being home at night.
I guess.
Yeah, and you can't just leave them alone.
No?
No.
They seem like they should be self-sufficient.
You think so. Like, he's asleep. What's the problem?
I don't understand.
But no, you can't leave him.
Right.
So I couldn't go do all my improv and sketch stuff like I used to be able to.
Right, of course.
But I arranged it so that in the evenings after he goes to bed, I do interviews and I talk to people who do this kind of stuff. So I can stay connected to like what's happening in the world and hear all sorts of adventures without having to leave my home.
That's actually awesome. I love
that.
that.
But then there's things like this with Austin Film Festival, which are great because then I get to meet people and talk to people in the flesh. Leave my house.
Crazy.
Guys, I'm so excited.
The sun.
I'm out of the house. Yeah. What? We're not talking on the phone right now? But yeah. It's such a fun thing to do. Do you write? You get your writer's room to put it together. Do you? How do you do the recording of it? Do you have like a studio? Do you do it all at once, like a play?
So we have a studio. We do like we try if we can, which most of the time we can, which is great. We do table reads, so the whole cast gets together and gets to hear the whole season out loud, which is great and fun. And then we rehearse, and then we record which again, I always say like, not everyone does it this way. You don't have to do it this way. Do what's best for you and like what's most convenient. But we use everyone who is in person and in LA, and then we record in a studio. And we record out of order, so we usually record a whole season in like 3 days.
Wow. How long does that take?
Roughly like 6 hour days.
Wow.
Yeah. It depends on the show. Like every show's a little bit different. Every script's a little bit different. Comedy's always a little bit faster because it's faster paced because it's comedy.
So interesting that you have it like finished, like that you have it like full season written before you even. It's funny because I guess in my mind I'm thinking like television, where like they're writing every week and it's coming out and they're adjusting and.
Well, I would say like. Again, like not everyone does it that way and not everyone has to. For me personally, it makes me so much less stressed.
Yeah.
Because you're also involved in post-production, you're committing to a release schedule that's required for you. Like I said, it's like running a small business. So you're wearing so many hats that if you're still writing and like moving around, it's so much easier to like have everything written first, then bring the actors on and do your changes that you might want to make as those actors get their voices behind them, then rehearse it, then record it, and be able to like close the door on each thing as you go through before you move to the next phase.
Yeah. I like your method. I think that would be much less stressful.
Fingers crossed. I hope so, yeah.
Well, because that way it's like you're done when you're done, and then either you can release it when you want.
Right.
But if there's like little things, you can adjust them or you can spend time, you can release it whenever you want.
Yeah.
So there's no true deadline.
Yeah, and also I think from like, for me, from a storytelling perspective, if sometimes I get to the 7th or 8th episode and something I want to do here means I have to change something in the first episode to match. So if we've already recorded that episode, then it's a lot more tedious to find the actors to come back in and then change it and then edit it and then make sure we haven't released anything about that part that we're changing and all that. So for me as a storyteller, like I find it easier to make to have hit the ending so that if anything I want to change would be more so that an actor came in and has this really amazing voice and I want to adjust certain things like that, or I want to add something because this actor was small in the script but came in and was perfect and we just want to, like, you're inspired to write more. Those changes are, of course, like a lot easier to make if you've already written the whole thing out.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me and sharing information about your podcast and all the hard work that you do. Like, that's really great. And you're producing other people's podcasts. That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I think this is awesome too. So I'm so excited.
Yay, hooray.
Cool.
Thanks for listening to Yes But Why Podcast. Check out all our episodes on yesbutwhypodcast.com or check out all the content on our network, HC Universal, at hcuniversalnetwork.com.